the front door. Please note that all appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his discretion. Now, we have done roll call, so we go to the report regarding posting of the agenda. This agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on August 1st, 2013. Oral communications discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. I have no oral communication cards. I don't believe Mr. Mardian has any oral communication cards. And also, in light of the fact that our chairman is not present, we do have to recognize a chair pro tem. Is there a nomination for a chair pro tem?
Mr. Mardian.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Sarkisian. Mr. Herman?
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mardian. You'll be standing in as chair pro tem for the meeting. There are no staff announcements, and we do have two Design Review Board cases on tonight's agenda. So at this point in time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Mardian.
Okay. The first case is PDR 1301810, 1410 Colina Drive.
Thank you, Chairperson Mardian and board members. As you stated, the first item is PDR 1301810-A, located at 1410 Colina Drive. The subject property is zone R1R, which is a restricted residential, essentially a hillside property within the floor area ratio district 2. This is one of the last remaining vacant lots in this neighborhood. The subject site is 10,374 square feet approximately in size, and it is irregularly shaped and contains oak, pine, and olive trees. The site was previously developed in 1920 with a small structure, about 420 square feet. This building has been partially demolished, but there is an existing driveway that leads to this building, and which will be retained. And there are also some retaining walls along the driveways, which is located on the south side of this driveway. The subject parcel is situated on hilly terrain and slopes up in the southwest direction towards the rear of the lot. The lot is narrow at the front and becomes wider at the rear, as you can see on the site plan posted behind you. The average current slope of the lot is approximately 40.7%. And just as a way to recap this project, since this is a new board, on March 4th, 2011, the Planning Hearing Officer approved conditional use permit case number PCUP 2010-002 with condition, and that CUP was to allow the construction of a new house on a lot having a lot width of less than 80 feet wide. The subject parcel has a lot width of 25.50 feet. This approval is valid for 2 years. However, an extension was granted, and now this CUP is valid until March 14, 2014. The proposal was last considered by the Design Review Board on December 15, 2011, and was returned for redesign with considerations. The previous project consisted of a 2,787 square foot house and an attached two-car garage designed with influences of the Spanish colonial revival style. And on the board behind you, I posted the new plans and the old plan to show the differences and the changes that have been made since that last DLB meeting. And also, just as to recap, the consideration provided by the Design Review Board at that meeting were pertain to: 1, consider a more suitable style for the subject lot; 2, consider reducing the square footage of the house to approximately 2,000 square feet; 3, greatly minimize the views away from the neighbors to the north as much as possible; 4, the landscape design should encompass the entire site; and 5, consider lowering the profile of the house to better fit into the hillside. Now so that gives you a brief background of where the project's been. And so now before you is the current proposal. This project was continued twice. Originally it was scheduled for June 13th of this year. However, due to lack of quorum, we had to continue the project to this date. Just so, as a summary, again, the applicant is proposing to demolish the remaining of the existing 420 square foot structure and construct a new two-story, 2,656 square foot single-family residence and a 498 square foot two-car attached garage on a 10,374 square foot lot. The construction of proposed residence will result in a movement of 1,092 cubic yards of earth materials that consists of both cut and fill. Now, onto site planning. The proposed project essentially will be constructed in the same location as the original building and as originally proposed when the Design Review Board first considered this case. Due to the unique lot size, the house is situated to the rear of the lot with an angled garage essentially lengthwise to the lot. So what's unique about the site planning with this property is that the house will not be facing the street, typical of a rectangular shaped lot. The rear yard has been enlarged. This causes, okay, well, hold on. The rear yard has been enlarged by 6 feet. If based on the last proposal, the rear yard was to be 9 feet. Now it's supposed to be 15 feet deep. So this change causes the retaining wall to be located further up the hill. So that's one change from the previous design. And more of the retaining wall may also be visible from the street due to the increased height. For this reason, staff recommend that the patio should not be enlarged. And also propose, as part of site planning, is a 6-foot high, 6-inch height block wall along the north elevation. This is to be the patio. The reason why this wall is proposed is to address one of the concerns the board mentioned about privacy. Overall, the site planning of the subject of the project is consistent with the unique shape of the lot, and it makes the best use of the subject site given that it is narrow at the front and wider at the rear. Now on to mass and scale. The neighborhood contains a mix of 1- and 2-story residences. The proposed house contains 2,656 square feet of livable space. This square footage shows a slight decrease from the original project, which originally proposed a 2,787 square foot residence. This is a 131 square foot reduction. Basically, the reduction result on the ground floor. The board suggested that the square footage of the project be reduced to approximately 2,000 square feet, which would be about 790 square foot reduction from the original proposal. However, the house appears to be substantially articulated as originally proposed, and the revised project generally shows the same approach. Where you'll notice the biggest change is along the north elevation. Again, this is the applicant's attempts to address the privacy concern onto the adjoining neighbors to the north. In staff opinions, these changes cause the house to be less articulated if you were to compare with the original proposal, and adds to a more massive appearance. Building design and detailing. The overall design and general detailing of the proposed project did not change from the previous submittal. Again, the applicant is proposing a house that has influences of the Spanish colonial revival style. Although the board suggested at the last meeting that the applicant explore a design that is more suitable to the unique features of the lot, such as a modern or a contemporary building. According to DRB's comments, a contemporary style building would lend itself better to this site, and it would also create a low profile appearance on the subject property. But the applicant is requesting that the board reconsider the same design. So let me just run over the changes for you real quick. So on this side is all the new drawings, and this is of the old drawings. You can see side by side, the biggest change take place on the north elevation. The parabolic window that originally was proposed under the original project became a segmented arch. This is the 6-foot high, 6-inch high block wall that I was referring to, which was originally proposed as a wrought iron fence. So this is again to limit the privacy onto the adjoining neighbors. And on the top floor, you'll notice that the change in fenestration pattern. Here in this volume, you'll see 2 smaller windows as opposed to 1 tripod type window. And this middle volume becomes a solid wall as opposed to a window, a casement window there before. And the last volume, you see a balcony with wrought iron. The balcony has been eliminated under the current proposal, and you see 2 smaller windows in its replacement. Okay? And also, the chimney has been removed on the west side, and there is a small patio or balcony on that side now. Otherwise, the changes, every other features of the property remain the same or of the design except the size, which is a reduction in 131 square feet, and the north elevation, as well as the increase in the size of the rear patio from 9 feet to 15 feet in depth. And that concludes my presentation.
Mr. Duong, I got a question. Did the height get reduced?
The height of the retaining wall?
No, the building.
The height of the building is essentially the same. Oh, it got...
Yeah, it got small.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is there. I saw it in the...
Because you had the old
Yeah.
set and then you said combine this. I'm sorry.
What changed in the... I couldn't... Because I didn't... That side. What changed on the north side? Can you describe it to the public?
The north elevation?
I mean, in plan-wise. I just,
Okay, so if I have a pointer. Okay, just to, so that we understand the lay of the land here. This is Colina Street, Colina Drive. So this is, as you can tell, this is a unique shaped lot. And this property slopes in this direction. So this is higher and this is lower. These neighbors here, there are 2 adjoining neighbors to the north, sits at a lower grade than the subject property. And between the common property line, you will find a number of oak trees, mature oak trees, as well as some other mature plantings. This is the north elevation that received the most changes to the current proposal. You see that the wrought iron fence that was originally proposed here has been replaced by a 6-foot 6-inch high block wall. And the fenestration, meaning the window location, size, and placement, has also been changed to address the privacy concern that were brought forth by the neighbors to the north. So this is the applicant's attempt to address those concerns. But other changes...
the footprint there changed a little bit.
Yes, the footprint changed also, yes. This breakfast nook used to be a square
right.
piece. Now it's more of an arch piece. So the reduction mainly took place on the ground floor in terms of the square footage.
What's the setback? Sorry, what's the setback from that retaining wall to the property line?
I believe it's about 14 feet.
Because I couldn't tell here. Okay.
So the changes here, again, were about these neighbors right
Correct,
here,
both of these neighbors.
even though they're down somewhat.
Yes. And again, the applicant attempt to show that relationship here in this new drawing of the section where There's a sight line shown of the neighbors to the north.
Any questions, Mr. Sarkisian?
The reduction was, you said the breakfast nook area and what
Yes,
else?
generally to that, the reduction was generally to this area.
Thank you, Mr. Rowan.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go. We'll open the public hearing. I'll start with the applicant, architect, Mr. Edward Hagopian.
Good evening. My name is Edward Hagopian. I'm the architect of this project. My address is 220 South Kenwood Street, Suite 210, Glendale 91205. From the previous hearing, our main concern was to kind of minimize the windows facing to the neighbor to the north. First of all, we added that wall on the patio. Can I approach?
Sure, of course. Go ahead. You're welcome. You have a pointer?
You can see this. This wall didn't exist. We added this to prevent any kind of view from these two doors and windows to the neighbor. And I have a diagram, I don't know if you have it here, to show that with this diagram, if you stand there, you will not be able to see even the roof of the house to the north. That is one issue. Overall, we have lowered the height of the building by 17 inches. And the reason that we have to have this deeper patio on the back is not by choice. This is a part of building code, H/2 or whatever it is, that we have to have a distance between this wall and the house to make that safe. Other than that, but I also had another option that closing every window, but I think it will be very dull elevation, all the blocks of the stucco here. Regarding the size of the house, the owner has to have a certain size of the house which is functional for him. And compared to, can I go there?
Sure, go ahead.
I did submit the address of 10 houses in 500-foot radius, and we have up to 8,000 square foot house, then goes down to 5,000, 6,000, 5,000, 4,000 square foot, and compatibility of the size of the house, if it's like down to 2,000 square foot, first of all, it's not functional. Second, it's not compatible with the neighborhood. Regarding the style of the house, it is recommended by Hillside Guidelines. This neighborhood is predominantly Spanish style. So the owner chose to keep the style, Spanish style, and if this was a contemporary, then even height of the wall plus the parapet could have been more than what a Spanish style could have been. The colors and the textures and materials are high quality, as you can see. And we try to make this project to have the best quality materials to be used here. Other than that, by the way, by having these small windows facing the north, if you look to the other elevation, east and west,
Yeah, there's
you will see that our main windows
Or on the side?
are on the side, yes. We have these windows on the side here, and
It got larger on the new plan.
side, yes. We have this window
That one too, that's the one, no?
here and here and here. And this balcony that we created here because we had a sliding door to walk out with a larger fenestration here. And this one is bigger. This is the main windows. Not, this is just to try to keep the elevation, not just a solid stucco wall.
Let him finish, Mr.
This is the other version with no windows. I don't think this is according to the guidelines of the design report. You can see all the walls totally stucco. That's all I can think of. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Go ahead, sir.
You mentioned square footage of houses in the neighborhood. You said one was 8,000, one was 5,000.
Yes.
I have a list here that doesn't have those. I don't. Not sure.
This is something that I submitted before.
500-foot radius. Let's see. And this is a smaller radius.
Oh, I have that one, I think. Somewhere.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I can just clarify one of the handouts Mr. Hagopian just distributed, which discusses the Woodlands neighborhood.
Correct.
This is our old residential guidelines. They're superseded by the new comprehensive design guidelines. I don't think anything, especially related to style, changes in those, but we just want you to know that these aren't our current guidelines.
But the style you said doesn't change? Styles?
We would acknowledge there are Spanish colonial houses in Woodland, what we used to call Woodlands neighborhoods, yes.
We don't have any variances filed. Everything is according to the zoning code, floor area ratio, lot coverage, setbacks, driveway slopes, heights. Everything is according to code. So we have no variance to file with this project.
Thank you, Mr. Hagopian. Do you have any questions, Mr. Sarkisian?
Just about the window, why was it changed from the old one to the new? The front large window to the panel one?
You mean downstairs window?
Yeah, the living room.
Valid one?
To be honest with you, I like this better than this.
Mr. Hagopian, since you're up there, how many oak trees are you removing? Because I wasn't sure from this plan. Like, 2 of them I can read. 2 of them are very close to these retaining walls. Are you going to be able to salvage those?
We have a tree report prepared by our arborist and approved by Anne Marie Sheet,
She approved? Okay.
the city arborist.
But to answer your question, Mr. Chair, a total of 5 trees will be removed, and that has been approved.
How many trees?
5.
5 total. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hagopian. Thank you very much, sir. I'm going to go next to the applicant. I assume he's the owner, Andrew Awada.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Owaida. I have worked in the city of Glendale for over 23 years now. My intention has been, when I first bought this lot, to design and build a house on it, to live in it and raise my family. I have a son, he's 10 years old now. When I started this project, he was 6. Until now, he's still living in an apartment. My intention is to build an adequate, functional home in size, style, and shape with today's standards of living. Nothing grand, but something just adequate, practical. When we started this project, my architect and I, we went to the city. We met with city staff. We had a design for a modern home. They sort of talked us out of it. They recommended more something conforming with the neighborhood. Spanish. I had no desire to fight with anyone. I totally agreed with it. I like Spanish too. So we redesigned the house to a Spanish one. After our last hearing, I became aware of neighbors' concerns, especially the one to the north, the privacy issues. We had asked the city to arrange a meeting for us to meet so that we can discuss their issues and work on them. The neighbor to the north declined to meet with us. I had asked my architect to address those issues. I am sensitive to the privacy issues here. So we worked on minimizing windows, rotated or moved the balconies, put a wall. I have no interest in intruding on the neighbor's privacy. We've tried anything and everything we can in order to minimize that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me ask you a question, Mr.
Yes.
Did you try, although the neighbor in the north declined, did you try to contact the Verdugo Woodland Homeowner Association?
No, I did not.
Thank you.
I didn't think it was an active association and
Well,
it to be
you know,
informed of every step we're taking.
that's good. Thank you, sir. I have other attorney for the owner, Lisa Weinberg.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here. At this stage of the hearing, Oh, I'm so sorry. My name is Lisa Weinberg. I am an attorney with Gaines and Stacy. We're located in Encino. And Mr. Owida did ask us to help him with revising and presenting his project to you because of the strong concerns that were expressed at the last hearing. Having gone through the staff report, I see that the staff has done an exemplary job. The staff report for the last hearing was quite thorough and very informative. This one has been expanded even further to show why all of the elements of the comprehensive design guidelines that are applicable to this particular project have been met. It's really a nice guideline for you all to be able to follow to see why you can make the findings to approve this particular version of the project as presented. I believe that there are a number of speakers who will be coming this evening who may still express concerns, despite all of the revisions to the project, about privacy issues or massing. And just in my review of the design review section of the municipal code, I do note that it states that regarding privacy, access to natural light, and placement of windows, the review authority, this board, shall consider alternative arrangement of windows or building massing or site layout to avoid conflicting relationships to adjacent buildings, structures, improvements, and uses, which is what was done after the last hearing. Those modifications have been made. But it goes on to say, for these reasons alone, however, the review authority shall not reduce the size or scale of a project or shall not prohibit construction with a reasonable number or size of windows in a new or remodeled building or in addition thereto. So that kind of lays out the scope of authority that this board has, which gives you plenty of authority to require revisions to the project to make it sensitive to the neighbors in this ways that I believe that we've accomplished, but not, as you may be asked, to actually deny the project or to require that there be no windows at all. With regard to the size and the square footage of the project, I would just like to point out that, as staff also points out, there is no requirement that this property be kept to a absolute maximum of 2,000 square feet, as you might be told. And that we've also been told that the hearing officer has reviewed this version of the project and has found that it's in compliance with the CUP. And that person has the authority to make that determination. So with all of that in mind, we appreciate your consideration of the project, and we'll be available to answer questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Move on. I have a neighbor, Ed Shamadas. Sorry for mispronouncing it.
Shamdas.
Chamdas, okay.
Yeah, I'm Ed Shamdas. I live in 1408 Colina Drive. I live in this house for 27 years, so I know the neighborhood. I appreciate your patience in hearing our sides of the issues. Our presence at this meeting attests to our commitment that the integrity of a neighborhood is maintained. We are not willing to let this project move forward without exercising our rights as citizens of Glendale to shape its future by getting involved in development projects in our neighborhood. The challenge for this architect is to build a house that can fit in a narrow lot, basically behind others' houses with practically no street footage. The need to present a consensus designs that demonstrate the awareness of the limitation of the shape and size of the lot has been completely ignored by Mr. Aguirre and his architect. They have repeatedly presented their design as if the house was to build on a lot with the longest side facing the street. This design shows absolutely no consideration for the limitation of space it occupies. 3 of the 5 recommendations by the DRB board has been completely ignored. They say change the style, make it smaller, lower the profile. All 3 submissions feature nearly identical Spanish colonial style home. The style has not changed noticeably since the original design was presented near 4 years ago. The size of the house remained nearly 2,700 square feet, completely ignoring the stipulation that it is about 2,000 square feet. The profile of the house is still quite tall with 2-story design to tower over our home, which shows a disregard of the recommendation of the profile of the house to be lower to fit in the neighborhood. The lot will accommodate a thoughtful design of 2,000 square feet house. 2,700 square feet is 35% larger than that was recommended. I'd like to add one comment. Tim Foy did contact me to set up a meeting with the owners, but after that phone call, I heard nothing from them. And I'm sure Mr. Roder have my phone number and my address and everything, and they could contact me anytime. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I have Mr. Saro Shahajian. Shahajian.
Good afternoon. This is Saro Shahajian. I'm living 1508 Hillside Drive. And I'm going to talk about first I'm going to start, if you will let me come over there, show.
Why don't you start, see if it's,
Okay, so first of all,
I'm going to allow 3 minutes for everyone, so please.
Yeah, I know, but I have that right to come and show
Fine.
things.
When you're done speaking,
Yeah,
you're
okay,
welcome.
sure. Thank you. First of all, they didn't change anything. All that side of his house is looking at my house. This is, whoever saw that plan is going to say this is the front of house, but this is side of house. The front of house is up there, is too small. Whoever saw that plan is going to think, that one is the back, this is the front. It's totally reverse. And also, he said he's going to, the Mr. Akopian says he's going to build a 6-foot block wall with the fence. The height of from our backyard to the first floor is 25 feet height, and the second floor goes to 33 feet. How he's gonna build a fence to cover that area for our privacy? How? There is no such things. I mean, with the 6 feet block wall, and that block wall is next to the big oak tree. He can't put a block wall there. I don't know how. The city or the other department, they're not gonna let Mr. Akopian build that retaining wall next to that big oak tree. I don't know how. Then the second one is the fence. And regarding that square footage, it says 8,000 square feet house there. Okay, that 8,000 square feet house is 40,000 square feet lot. Okay, this is 10,000 square feet. Very odd lot. I mean, we are not saying you can't build it. You can, of course you can. It's your choice. But not destroyed our privacy, not destroyed my life, not destroyed his life. I very hard. It was very hard. I buy this house for my future of my kids, and you're gonna destroy it with that. You're gonna take that privacy from our family. That one is very important to us. And
let me ask you a question, if I may interrupt. If you didn't see any windows there, are you happy with that?
the window, the first day when they bought that land, Mr. Akopian came like 2-3 weeks after he bought that land. He came and I talked to him, and he said, we are not going to put any window, only the bathroom window is going to be there, or this, that, no window, no, we are not going to hurt your privacy. But when we saw the plan, it's.
So you still haven't answered my question. If you see no windows, is the mass okay?
No, it's not okay, sir. Everything.
The window or the mass that you're looking at?
Everything in that section, windows. I mean, the height of window, they're supposed to cut the height. They cut on the wide side. All the windows.
Talk about that, but you answered my question. Thank you very much, sir. I have to stop you here because we have a lot of speakers. Thank you very much. We'll take your comments into consideration. I have Elizabeth.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm one of the members living in the north lot and one of the most affected by the subject design. I'm sorry,
please.
Elizabeth Shahjahanian. We are gathered here once again to raise our concerns about the new version of the design by Mr. Hagopian. During our last DRB hearing, about a year and a half ago, the previous design review board members specifically placed certain conditions under which the design must be created. When Mr. Duong made his representation today, he specifically said, and I quote, "Applicant asks the board to consider the same design." Nothing has changed. I want to know why the applicant, after almost 2 years, is asking a different board to consider the same design that was rejected by the previous board. Now, the specifics of the conditions previously made by the previous board is as follows: more suitable style for the subject lot, landscape design and should encompass entire site, reduction of square footage to approximately 2,000 square foot, greatly minimize the views to the neighbors to the north as much as possible, lowering the profile of the house to better fit the hillside. First of all, once again, the conceptual picture as presented by Mr. Hagopian does not truthfully depict the proposed design and is gravely misleading. As I stated in my previous objection to the design, it is impossible to understand the effects of this proposed building on our privacy without actually coming to the site and to my backyard. That is why I have sent numerous emails along with my other neighbors and urged you as members of the board to come to our backyard and take a look at the site. I believe one board member came in today and last minute, and I'm not sure, I wasn't home, so I don't know how long you were able to basically see the actual site. The height of this proposed building does not comply with the site itself, nor the previous design review board's recommendation. Further, the profile of the house has not been changed since the previous design. The main entrance door was suggested to be placed facing Colina Drive at the entrance to the property, and it is still facing my backyard as well as my next door neighbors' backyards. The windows on such a tall structure are still facing our house, contrary to what the previous board suggested, which was that they should face the front of the property. The square footage of the proposed design was suggested to be approximately 2,000 square feet. The current design exceeds that limit by over 650 square feet. In fact, Mr. Hagopian was so concerned about how the recommendations would limit the design that during the board's deliberation, he came up and stated that with these recommendations, he could only design a one-story building and pleaded to the board to loosen the conditions, but it was denied. And today, he comes up here and he says that the owner has to have a certain size which is functional for him. So he's trying to have the owner have a functional house. What about my house? My house to be infunctional because someone here wants to have a functional house to the expense of my privacy? I still have some time.
No, I think you're done, please.
Okay.
I have a lot of speakers, and
Mr. Hagopian went over his time and you did not say anything, sir.
he has 5 minutes. He's the applicant. Thank you. I have Homeowner Association Rep. Myrna Stanley.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Myrna Stanley. I'm president of Verdugo Woodlands West Homeowners Association. And before I make my comments, could I just ask you to check one thing? On the first page of staff's report, they talk about 1,092 cubic yards of earth material of cut and fill. And I know staff is going to tell you it's not under your authority, but I need to know if this is a balanced site. And if not, how much export is involved and how many truckloads, because that's a very hillside that leads up to Colina is very, very steep and narrow. And I also need to know, since there's going to be dirt moved, if the story poles, the current story poles reflect the accurate height of this house, or is it going to change when the earth is moved? To get on with our comments, we continue to oppose this project. It's been over 2 years that we supported that a conditional use permit be approved because we understand it's a legal lot. The applicant has an absolute right to develop it. The neighbors understand this. No, to my knowledge, no one is against having this lot developed. They know they're going to be impacted to some degree, but I have to tell you, I've attended way too many DRB meetings in my lifetime, and this has got to be one of the most egregious violations of privacy, of visual mass that I've seen. The house itself, the design, it isn't bad. I mean, if you can tweak it all you want, but it doesn't belong on that site at all. It's over 40% average slope. It's set if you stand at the front, you're going to say, well, what's the problem? Well, you need to see it from the Shamdas property that's downslope and to the other properties. So it also violates the hillside guidelines as respect to that patio. So my instincts tell me, hopefully, that you're probably going to continue this for redesign. But you know, if what the applicant says is accurate, that he was discouraged from presenting a contemporary design, that he was misled. That isn't staff's role. I saw his first submittal of a contemporary home, and you know what? It wasn't bad. I don't recall how large it was, but it obviously, because it was contemporary, it's lower to the ground, longer roofs. So the only way somebody here is going to understand what the previous DRB is talking about, because they're either ignoring it or they don't get it. So you really need to deny this project. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Jack Foote.
Hello, my name's Jack Foote. I live also at 1408 Colina Drive, directly in front of or next to, basically, right down the hill. We're on Colina Drive. So the front door of the house looks directly into our backyard. I basically will reiterate the issue that the design has not really changed. It's been tweaked, and it doesn't really, it's kind of ignored basically what was recommended by the...
Excuse me for interruption.
Sorry.
Which one are you?
We're on 1408 Colina Drive, so the driveway that's going up there, that's our house. Right in front of that, you see the corner of the house? I can point it out.
Right next.
You're on the corner.
Okay. Right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're across the street.
Yeah, no, our house is right here.
Oh, because I met another gentleman. I'm confused. Sorry. There was another gentleman there. Okay.
That's your house, pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this is the back of our house. Sorry, yeah.
So you're up the hill from him.
Okay.
Downhill. No.
The same guys.
All right, so just to quickly, go through some very important things here. As was said, they did not really incorporate any of the design review recommendations that were made. The issue of the whole project needing a better design. They need windows high in the wall like a modern design. We have great views of the hills. If you have windows like that, you don't need to build a prison for someone to live in with tiny windows and walls all around it. They could come up with a design that would be both livable and comfortable for his family, as well as respect the right of our families to be comfortable. So that design issue was not addressed at all. And basically, the other thing is with the square footage. I understand he has a family. He wants a house that's large. He needs to find a lot to build that house on. He's talking about a house that's 8,000 square feet. Yeah, that lot is huge. It goes from Colina Drive all the way over to Hillside. It's got street access from both sides. It's a huge mansion that's there. You can't compare building on this tiny little lot to that. It's completely inappropriate to bring those in as examples. There is one other one he referred to that's overbuilt. That's like 5,000 square feet. But that's why we have new rules, because we don't want to have any more of those kind of huge houses built in our neighborhood that don't respect the privacy and so forth of the neighbors. So the design needed to be reconsidered. The square footage is not appropriate. And I don't know, in looking at this lot, when you purchase it, if you do your due diligence, you're going to know that you're going to be very limited in what you can put there. In fact, that conditional use permit is there because the lot doesn't meet the minimum requirements. And that's something that a purchaser of a piece of property should look into. We shouldn't be held accountable for that. We actually made an offer to purchase the property when it was available, and, he bought it out from under us. There's really as I said, no need for the people in the house to live in the darkness. So they could have plenty of windows and plenty of light with a design that's more appropriate. And we really believe that if they want to build a house there and live there, they're going to have to really think about something that works. And we would certainly welcome their and respect, of course, their right to build a house as long as they don't put that. I mean, the person standing at the front door of that house is looking right into our backyard. I mean, and that was something that somebody else said, is that they should put the door on the other side and just really think about how that could minimize their impact on us. So please support us, and thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I have Andrew Fredericks.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I live at 1531 Hillside. My name is Andrew Fredericks. So I'm a little bit down the road here. My house is about 1,200 square foot. The house next to me is about 1,200 square foot. And the house on my right is 1,200 square foot. I look up onto that property there. I can't really quite see it, but I have these giant, beautiful pine trees that block the whole hillside that I can look out of my bay window, and I don't have to see the houses that are on top of the ridge. Now, when he talks about cutting down 5 trees, I heard 5 oak trees. Now, I have a feeling those pine trees, which are probably 40, 50 years old, are all going to be chopped down. I think they're in the story pole area. So then I'm all of a sudden going to have sun in my house all day, and I'm going to lose my beautiful view of the trees. I'm going to have a bunch of people looking down on our whole street. And everyone's talking about the size of the house and the change or not change. I'm not really that familiar, but it looks very similar to the one it was. And it should be in Laguna Hills, up overlooking the ocean on a giant bluff. And it's a beautiful house. But it doesn't belong in that little tiny, where there used to be a 400 square foot cabin. And I've got 2 little boys. People race up and down hillside. There's no traffic control. And I can't even build a little 3-foot fence because I'm told I can't do it. But someone could come into our neighborhood, buy this little lot, which obviously is not made for a mansion, and then get a permit to chop down all these trees that have been there, heritage oaks, and then build a retaining wall, which supposedly will not kill Sam's beautiful oak trees that are like these. I can't cut 1-foot branch off of an oak tree without being thrown in jail or threatened with fines. So how someone could get a permit to cut down all these trees and build retaining walls right through the roots? They're going to chop all these roots off of all these oak trees along Sam's property line to build this retaining wall. And if they don't build a retaining wall, the whole property is going to slide down into his backyard. So I'm coming not from necessarily what the house looks like, because it's not going to affect me directly, but from a wildlife, from trees and nature and the Verdugo woodlands. And someone said previously known as the Verdugo woodlands. I don't want it to be previously known as the Verdugo woodlands. I want it to be the Verdugo woodlands. And if we're going to start building Spanish-style mansions, or that look like mansions, I mean, it's obviously a 2,000 square foot or 3,000 square foot building, but that is too big. It's not appropriate, and it's going to ruin our quality of life. And I want to know, how long is this project going to take? How long am I going to have dump trucks hauling dirt up and down my street, day and night, diesel, and workers coming in at 7 o'clock? How long is this going to go on for? A year? 2 years? While they excavate all this earth and plant all this stuff, it's going to destroy our neighborhood. And if he wants to build a 2,000 square foot house, he's more than welcome. We'll have a party there. We'll welcome him. But that is not appropriate. So I appreciate your consideration. I hope you all, like I say, go up there and take a look at it. It's really important to see. It's just not made for the neighborhood. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. I have Aaron Shahjajian. Spell it again. Let's pronounce it.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Aaron Shahjahanian, and I'm a resident at 1508 Hillside Drive. I live at the property to the north of this proposed building site, and I originally had this great presentation that I wanted to give. It was really elaborate, and it had all these great things in it. And now I hear Mr. Hagopian and the owner of the house and this ma'am right here, you know, they say all these things, and I just have to address them. I mean, I can't let them go unaddressed. Mr. Duong in his presentation stated that it's one of the last remaining empty lots in the area. Gentlemen, there's a reason that that's fact. There's a 400 square foot cottage there, and that's about as big as it gets. You know, it's for, Santa's elves to live there in the summer or something like that. You know, you can't have one of these mansions over there. They want to build this huge house that works for Mr. Iwata so he can have his family there. And I'm a part of a family. I'm a part of a 4-member family in a 2,400 square foot house. And we have an extra room in the house. So how much space do you really need? And that space in a land that can't provide it. I heard stated previously that the main windows are on the sides of the house. I would ask you guys to take a look at that picture over there. It seems to me that the largest window in the whole house is facing my backyard. And it seems like in some last-ditch attempt to make it seem like it's not as bad as it is, they put some, shrubs there or bushes. I don't even know what those are, but, that's not a permanent solution. Something, some deer can come and eat those, or the plants won't grow, and that's not a permanent solution. That's not going to solve the problem. We need real structural things that are going to prevent any privacy issues, and those clearly don't exist in this design. I would also like to ask you to look at the plans, please, and tell me which part of the house do you think is the front of the house? Because, to me, I would say the part with the largest window, some balconies, the most windows, the front door. Is that the front of the house? No, that's the side of the house. That faces my backyard. The front of this house, what one would consider as the front of this house, is the part of the house that's facing my backyard and my house. This house is orchestrated in such a way that it infringes unreasonably on my privacy, and that's just unacceptable. Also, I would have to be a little bit of an environmentalist here as well and say, you're cutting down all these oak trees, and I would have to agree completely with the speaker before me that it's just unacceptable and it does not preserve the heritage and the history of this area. I have a lot of oak trees on my property, and, we can't touch those. So this guy gets to cut down a bunch of trees, and there are deer up there all the time, and it's a corridor of nature, and somebody's trying to destroy it in an unreasonable way. We're not saying don't build a house, we're saying build a house that works, and this clearly doesn't work, and it doesn't take an Einstein or a genius to see that. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I have Ella. Sorry for that. Same punch. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ella Shahjahanian. I'm also a resident of the 1508 Hillside Drive property, which is north of the Colina property. The Design Review Board, upon their deliberation at the end of the previous meeting, stated that the square footage of the house be up to 2,000 square feet, with the majority of the windows be made to face Colina Street. The architect has not only disregarded the square footage requirement, making the most recent house plan at 2,600 square feet, but he has also kept the majority of the window placements facing our backyard, which has been, everyone's been saying that here tonight. The problems, although different in appearance, remain unchanged in the magnitude of damage that they will be causing to our well-being and privacy. The builders must comply with the requirements set forth by the Design Review Board, as the current plan is not only insufficient, but inhumane in my opinion. The plan is not a compromise in the slightest sense. Mr. Hakopian has ignored the current order, and I feel as if his blatant disregard to my family's privacy will greatly alter how we go about our daily lives, constantly aware that we have multiple windows and eyes watching us. I have been away for college for the last 2 years, and I recently moved back home in June. This is not the welcoming I expected, as I do not need an invasion of my privacy upon myself and my family of this magnitude. Mr. Iwata has stated that his son still lives in an apartment, and it is not our fault that he is trying to build a house that is not compatible with the land. And if living in an apartment is the big issue here, if this continues and this house is built, I will have to move out of the house and live in an apartment myself to get some privacy. Thank you.
Thank you. How long have you lived there? And you and your family? How long?
With my family since 2008, and I was away. Yeah.
Thank you. Connie Horton?
I'm Connie Horton, and I live at 1474 Hillside Drive. I'm going to be relatively brief because most of my points have already been covered. I just want my views known. First of all, my utter disappointment that the conditions that were imposed at the last meeting have been so blatantly ignored. We have rules. We live by them, supposedly. Second, the amount of dirt that's going to be moved. Many, many years ago, we had a very heavy rainstorm, and part of the hill behind my house fell against my retaining wall. It came within inches of going over into my backyard and my pool. If he's going to build this house and move all this dirt, I'm concerned about the stability of the hill as a whole. He's going to remove trees whose roots anchor the dirt, and I think all of us on that ridge can expect some dirt movement. And again, we live in the Verdugo woodlands. All this chopping down is chopping down the woodlands. Keep going, and you're going to look like that development that was done behind Oakmont, where they just blazed the hill. The big fir tree, how are you going? I thought the fir tree, or pine tree, whatever it was also a protected species. And how are you going to incorporate that? It's huge and it's beautiful. And it used to have the most lovely pair of birds up there that we got to see. And all the bushes being removed. I used to be able to not even see the cabin because of the growth that was there, and it was lovely. Now I can see the sorry poles just clear as day. How much more is he going to cut down? So my point is, he didn't obey the rules, too much dirt's going to be moved, and how come he gets to cut down oak trees and I can't even trim one, which I don't want to trim, but I can't.
Thank you. My last speaker is Corny Nutting.
Good evening. My name is Corinne Nutting. My husband and I reside at 1428 Kalina Drive. We're on that piece of the other end of the Kalina. The Kalina is a J shape, so we're on the end of the block. And my main concern about this project is the mass. And so this is what I'm thinking. Because I'm at the end of that drive, that's my home as well as several other homes. This is our only access, is through that street. And it's a very narrow street. It's really for one-way traffic. And I can tell you on Fridays, when the trash people come, since I'm off on Fridays, I have to when their trash is coming down, I have to pull aside and we squeeze by each other. So, and the other thing I want to point out was that, I know more people in single-family homes now have multiple cars. And most people don't like to park them on the street. I happen to park my cars in my garage, but bigger homes beget more cars. And I do have a concern about the accessibility, because when there are people in the neighborhood, I can tell you that there's several neighbors in our little 9 homes. The only 9 homes I think are actually on Kalina Drive. When people are parking on the street, there is an accessibility problem. I mean, how is a fire truck going to get to my home if there's an emergency or some other emergency vehicle? And I have young children too. In fact, I have a 6-year-old, and my children take the school bus. So when I go, I can see this happening, and this is, I believe has happened once before. When they get off the school bus, I have to be there. I cannot leave a 6-year-old at the bus stop because I need to maneuver in and out of the streets because of whether it's construction trucks or other people that are trying to get in and out. So it all has to do with the mass. And in all honesty, I don't object to him building a home. I think he should. I think he could build a very lovely home. And in fact, if he were to build a 2,000 square foot home, I wouldn't be here, standing here opposing this project. In fact, I'm a mother of 2 young children, and this is important enough to myself and the other neighbors that we've come to multiple hearings to support this. And I also like to believe that, my husband and I have been living here 17 years, that we have faith in the board and this process, that we can speak out and voice our concerns and that you're going to address them. Because I just kind of find it odd that we actually would allow a project that would actually infringe on other people's enjoyment, such as my own, my ability to access my home, and other people's privacy. I mean, it's really how this works. I mean, that we've worked so long to make our homes our palace and not to be able to fully enjoy them. So I hope you'll consider that we're just I'm just an ordinary person, just wanting to live in my house, just like he is. Thank you very much for considering.
I had a question. You live at the end of the street.
I live on the...
What style of your house?
I have I think it's contemporary. It's a contemporary. I'm actually at the very end. There's like one house that's... There's a mid-century home.
Okay.
There's that mid-century home. Because mine's is right...
The driveway going up?
Yes, one with the glass garage door.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hi. 2-minute rebuttal. But before, does anybody have a question, my colleagues? No?
If I may, staff also, just so that it's in the record, staff received a number of emails and letters from neighbors surrounding the property. One from Rose Burton, Lori Saparian, James and Corinne Nutting, Jack Foot, Ed Shamdas, Elizabeth Shahjahanian, and Sam Shahjahanian. That's it. I just want.
I believe I got those earlier.
Yes, they are all copied and in front of you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gold.
Thank you.
Mr. Hagopian.
I'll be presenting the rebuttal.
Thank you.
The Weinberg again. Thank you. You clearly have heard a lot of passionate testimony from others in the neighborhood. I just want to point out a few facts that were raised by them. One, many of the speakers, probably just from a misunderstanding of procedure, stated that at the last hearing, the Design Review Board imposed conditions on this project that have not been met. To the contrary, the Design Review Board suggested that consideration be given to 5 different elements, most of which were addressed. Not all were addressed fully as requested by some of the members of the Design Review Board, but a good faith effort was made by the applicant to address the significant issues, especially regarding the privacy. hence the significant reduction in the sizes and locations of the windows on the north-facing side of the residence and the provision of the block wall and the moving of the balcony. All of these steps were taken so that obviously real concerns of those in the neighborhood could be addressed. We do want to be sensitive to them while still using the property in the way that is legal and is warranted under the code and the comprehensive guidelines. With regard to the trees, again, that's not really something within the authority of this board. The tree permit was already granted. In fact, many of the trees that were permitted to be removed have been removed already. Just to remind also that when we do look at privacy under the city's code, it is measured specifically and expressly only from the common area rooms of the new construction, whether from those rooms it's possible to see into neighboring properties, into their bedrooms and bathrooms. That has been addressed by the changes that were made. So the second story with the bedrooms and bathrooms of this new project, even though it's not covered by the privacy portion of your guidelines,
I have to cut it
it's
off.
also been addressed.
Thank you. But I did have one question to you. I'm going back, maybe Mr. Hagopian can answer this question. The contemporary home, you talk about the design. All I see, the previous design was Spanish. How long ago was that? Or has that ever been officially submitted?
Ms. Myrna Stanley mentioned that there was a contemporary filed.
Right.
There is no such a thing. We
There's no
never
such
filed that. No.
Okay. So there was no contemporary design presented any time?
No, never.
Thank you, Mr. Hagopian. Anybody has a question since I have Mr. Hagopian here?
Actually, we might have a correction to that answer. Applicant.
City staff.
That was submitted to city staff, not to the...
Not officially, right.
Not
Okay.
officially, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
About the retaining wall, they were talking about cutting roots. Is that correct?
I believe that the one person was talking about the wall that we have to put in the north elevation. These things will be in caissons, so we will not have continuous foundation to damage the roots. And this is something that we have been doing for many projects. So every caisson from the other caisson will have a distance of like maybe 10 or 11 or 12 feet. And a grade beam will run on top of it, and it will not damage the roots of the tree.
Is there also a retaining wall here, or?
No.
No. So it's
Then that's a wood fence in that location.
That's a wood fence and then.
Thank you for bringing that out. I was going to
May I say
bring that
just
out. Yeah.
1 minute, please?
Okay, sure, go ahead.
There is a lot here said that the height is too high, but I cannot make a 6-foot high room. It has to have a certain height.
I understand that, Mr. Hagopian. We'll give us a chance to discuss it amongst ourselves. Well, I have no other speakers. I'll close the public hearing. And any questions to staff or any comments, or anybody wants to take anybody wants to start on it? Mr. Herman?
I'd just like to...
Before you start, Mr. Herman, were you part of the review when
No.
this... Okay. Okay, thank you.
I was just wondering where this 2,000 square foot number came from that the previous design review board put out there as a limit or a desirable maximum size. Where did that number?
To be honest with you, I don't recall the exact reason, but I believe it hinges on the size of the lot and the average size of the homes within the surveyed area, which is about a little bit over 2,100 square feet. And they believe that at that time it was a reasonable size for a house on this subject lot.
I see there's an average of 2195.
Correct. Yeah, that was the average.
And we should also remind people in the audience and board members that this was a consideration rather than a condition. and conditions are required of the applicant and considerations are not.
Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Jay, because that's what my next question. It says conditions here, comments and conditions as listed below. Now you're saying it's consideration.
Correct.
I just want to clarify
Okay.
that. Under
Yes.
the DRB comments?
Chair, it does, the staff report alludes to design review board comments and concerns.
And then the
And
second sentence.
then the second sentence refers to the board's comments and conditions. So every time that a condition is read as when it starts out, consider a more suitable style, that would be a consideration. Consider. It isn't a mandate where it'd be design or redesign the house in a more suitable style. So something that is
So 3 and 4 are not, are conditions because they
number
don't say consider?
3 and 4 would be conditions that are required to be addressed by the applicant, versus 1, 2, and 5, which would be considerations, where the applicant has the ability to consider and ultimately either proceed with the recommendation or not.
Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Ernest. So 1 and 5 are consideration.
1, 2, and 5
2
would
and
be
5.
considerations, and 3 and 4 would be essentially conditions or requirements.
And also, if I may add, this is just a correction on my part. Mr. Herman asked earlier about the 2,000 square feet, how it came about. Going back to the previous staff report of December 15, 2011, staff reiterated the conditions from the CUP by the planning hearing officer, and condition number 3 stated that the applicant shall reduce the scale of the residence to a size similar to the majority of the existing residences in a neighborhood that are less than 2,000 square feet. So that's where the number came from.
So if that's a condition of the conditional use permit, isn't that a requirement?
It is a requirement because that was stipulated by the hearing officer, but again, the applicant can come back with a size that is bigger than that, and it would be up to the board to consider whether also that's appropriate.
I believe also the hearing officer reviewed the current proposal with the case planner, and forgive Mr. Duong, that's correct, is it not?
That's correct. Uh-huh.
So they felt that the proposal met the intent.
I have a suggestion to my colleagues. Do we want to go through these DRB concerns, then start getting into the design of the house? Or,
That would be
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe because we don't want to start talking about design if we don't have consensus on the style. That's the direction. So let's talk about number 1. The style of the resident remains unchanged. Is the board inclined to support a Spanish colonial revival style?
I am. I mean, it's an eclectic neighborhood. It's one of the styles of the neighborhood. I think it's fine.
Okay.
I agree.
I do concur also, although there's several mid-century homes, different years. The Verdugo Woodlands, not necessarily immediately adjacent to these properties, are Spanish revival, but I think there is throughout Verdugo Woodlands quite a bit of Spanish revival. I will support the style of the house. So we have consensus on the style.
Yes. Yeah.
Consider reducing the square footage of the house to approximately 2,000 square feet.
I mean, to me, the 2,000 square foot seems somewhat arbitrary. Actually, just seems arbitrary, not somewhat. And it was put out there earlier by the hearing officer, and they've agreed to the current size. I don't see that 2,000 square feet is some magical limit. I think it's all about how does the house work, does it function, and so forth. And in summary, I would be inclined to approve the size as currently drawn. I don't think that 2,000 square feet is meaningful.
Also, I think we'd be sitting here going through this again if this project was 2,000 square feet. And
I agree.
I think when they're talking about construction, and construction is always inconvenient. I don't think it's 100 square feet making a project as far as it being acceptable. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Can you repeat that?
I said I believe that if the applicant had brought back a 2,000 square foot plan, we'd still be here discussing the project with objections. I don't think it's the 600 square feet difference that's making or breaking what the neighbors are finding acceptable or not. I think it's just the construction of the home in general. Because there were some discussions also about construction and how inconvenient it is, and construction is always inconvenient on everyone. So,
Put another, I mean, if it were a 5,000 square foot house, that would be one thing, but, you know.
I mean,
600
it's within the
square
scope of, yeah.
It's sort of close enough.
Yeah.
I agree with my colleagues. I don't think we should limit that number to that specific number, 2,000. If the board is inclined to approve this, maybe some reduction should take place, especially on the north side. But we'll deliberate that. But I agree with you that we shouldn't, say you can only do 2,000, because on an irregular lot shaped like this, you can't pin that number down.
And I think if they did do 2,000, it's not going to make everybody happy. That's what
Well,
it's still going to have the retaining walls, still going to have the trees removed, still going to have the construction.
Yeah, I mean, the nature of the geometry of the site as it relates to those, especially the two lots to the north, or three lots to the north, those issues are there no matter what, whether it's 2,000 or 2,600.
I agree.
I agree, but as long as it's designed sensitively, and I think if some tweaking has done to further push this building back, I think he can get that square foot just fine with me. But we'll finalize that thought as we go along. How about landscaping? Anybody had any issues with the landscaping?
Did you want to do number 3?
Oh, number 3. Oh,
3 and 4
we missed the important one. Okay, sorry. Yeah, those two are easy. I thought, okay, we're going there. Yeah, the key to the puzzle. Greatly minimize the view away from the neighbor on the north as much as possible. Mr. Sarkeesian, how do you feel about that?
I do feel like that is one of the more important points, and I do feel like the applicant has made an effort to change that from the previous plan with the windows and putting the windows on the sides. I don't know if they were on the sides as well before, but now they are, and the front is smaller. I mean, again, short of taking all the windows out and not putting anything there, I don't think there's a solution. There's something more they can do that they haven't done. And I think if you take out all the windows, I think it's going to be even worse just looking at a 2-story wall from below.
Okay.
Again, I think the sections kind of bear out some of the privacy issues that have been successfully mitigated by that wall, and then there's a fence as well. So, the ability to look out those windows down at the roof, it's a hillside. Those kinds of views happen. I mean, it's just in the nature of the how this hillside has been carved up into parcels.
Actually, I'm sorry. I'm going to ask the commissioners or the board members to actually speak into your microphone
Sure.
because it appears that some of the public is unable to.
I am concurring with Board Member Sarkeesian that the view issue has been, in my opinion, mitigated. That the introduction of the 6-foot wall and as well as the fence, that and especially if you look at the sections, now what would actually happen if you stand at those windows and look out? What you would see is the roof of the adjoining house. You've got a 6-foot wall. You've got a fence beyond that. It's a hillside. You get views out of windows. You see roofs. You get views of all kinds of things. I don't think that's a major privacy issue.
I'm sorry.
Sorry,
I'm
sir.
sorry. We cannot.
Sorry.
You're supposed to come and see the building.
I did, sir.
Sir?
You did that.
Yes, sir. Please.
Sir.
You
Sit
didn't.
down.
I'm sorry. We're going to have to call
decide-
security if you.
Call it. You decide and everything you decide outside and bring it here to. How come the
I'm sorry, sir.
board member they rejected?
We haven't got to a decision yet, sir.
100% okay.
Thank you.
I don't believe
Thank you.
this hearing. It's hearing called hearing.
Sorry for the interruption. Go ahead, sir.
I'm done.
One comment that I have, I understand that the wall is there from the first floor. How does the board feel from the second floor, viewing it from the second floor? Because you clearly have some windows there.
Yeah, I mean, you have to believe the section, but standing on this second floor looking out, you're looking largely down at a roof.
There's no garage there. The particular property on the north that the neighbors are concerned is the one in the north. It's very much clear view. There's no structures there. The roof is on the. Correct me if I'm wrong, staff. I don't think there's. I visited the site today. I don't think there's any structures there, and they have a swimming pool.
There's a swimming pool in the house beyond. The garage is at the front.
The garage.
Yes, you
and
can't see the garage from.
The only there maybe have been a structure at that corner, but I know he's working with the applicant to solve that problem, but second floor is still a concern of mine, and I don't know if my colleagues see what I'm saying. See, we're still, based on the elevations that the applicant, based on the survey, there's about 14 feet from this pad elevation to the neighbor site. So this helps you, based on the diagram that he's showing. Yeah, he's he's avoiding that, but on the second floor, he's still going to have some windows. And I hate to see no windows, but I don't know how the board feels about that.
Is it possible to push the second?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. I mean, maybe, pushing this building further back, maybe losing a couple of 100 square feet to achieve further distance from the neighbor.
For the second floor.
For the second floor. And I think that would be a compromise, because then that would further take it away from the property line. The neighbor on the east side is further away, although you still can look into his backyard. But that's the garage portion, and I think it's there's the oak trees, and although the oak trees are not providing really a screening, the fields you only see is the trunk. Those are very high mature trees. Sorry for not speaking in the microphone. I hope everybody can. That's the only, I have no problem with the style. I think if the massing is reduced a little bit, I think he still has room. He can drop this building down another foot. Yeah.
But is it true that It has to be 15 feet away from the retaining
Well,
wall
that's
in
the
the back?
question. There's other ways to do it, but, that's, you can reduce that distance, but it requires much more involved engineering and all that.
One issue that could arise from that is that the retaining wall would have to be pushed back further, and there would be more earth removal, which could start pushing us to a higher
Well,
limit.
we're not talking about pushing the wall, pushing the building.
Those 15 feet
Reducing
have to
that
be there?
15, the edge over 2 that Mr. Hagopian was talking about.
Also reducing the footprint of the house.
No, push the building.
Second floor back.
Yeah, if you push the second floor back, there's a minimum distance that's required to be between the building wall and the retaining wall.
That's 15 feet by
But
building.
that could be manipulated. But again, I'll let the applicant deal with that. But what he's presented, that's what we're looking at. But I think we have, some consideration needs to take place on the second floor. The wall helps. Some other mature trees taking place there will help. But we'll get into our discussion a little later. But how about the consideration of lowering the profile of the house to better fit into the hillside, number 5?
I don't know how that would be possible.
I think if it's a 2-story house, this is what you get. I mean, if you follow the contour of the hillside, again, looking at the section, I don't know how you afford it much more, and it seems relatively in keeping with the contours of the landscape to me. And they've lowered it somewhat, haven't they?
They lowered it about 1.5 feet.
I'm kind of also. I don't know if it's the height of the building or the fact that there are windows, or my thing is if the entire building is the objection, then what are we discussing? Whether the windows are smaller or bigger or not there? If that building was, let's say, even 2 feet lower, that's not going to solve the privacy issue. So.
Well, let's just go over these items, and we can, you can deliberate your comments, and we'll move forward on some sort of a motion. So we're pretty much okay with the style, correct?
Yeah.
The size, as long as we can come up with a design that, we don't limit them to 2,000. So the issue is the view and the profile. Now, if you guys
Again,
want to...
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, if we could remind the board that privacy is judged from common area spaces and not from bedrooms, bathrooms, and private area spaces.
Thank you for reminding. I was going to ask you how that interpretation was done. So from the common areas. Okay. It is not specific second floor, first floor?
If there were common areas on the second floor, they would be part of that.
So that balcony that he has?
That's off a private space, so it's not a common space. Common space would be dining room.
Okay, I got it.
If you'd like, I could read the language exactly.
If the board wishes to read that.
Privacy shall be judged by the view from the living room, den, study, family room, great room, library, dining room, or balconies greater than 25 square feet of the new development.
Balconies of great. 20, that's
bigger than, it's 12.
25 square feet?
Yeah. It's about 60. Twelve and a half by 5.
Again, is this considered private area because it's adjacent to the bedroom?
Oh, balconies.
You just
No,
read the interpretation,
balconies.
25.
A balcony from a bedroom is not a private area. It's
Okay.
one of
Even
the
though
more
it's-
common living areas.
Even though it's greater than 25.
No, if it is greater than 25, then it would be counted as one of the areas from which you can judge privacy impacts.
That is greater than 25, right?
So you,
12 and a half by 5 floor.
Yeah, that is about 62, 63 square feet.
Balcony there, the question.
Well, so it seems like there's maybe two areas where there may be a privacy issue.
Right.
One is this balcony, second floor. One is the living room, which is not obscured by the wall. And it has this large window.
Is this a 6-foot wall in front of the balcony?
Yes.
That's
So
right
the
on top,
balcony-
That's on the second floor.
Yeah. This master balcony has a 6-foot wall in front of it.
Well,
Yeah.
it's yeah.
I'm just trying to minimize, compromise and minimize the privacy.
And how about extending this wall to in front of the living room as well? Sorry, first floor. This wall. That's something
This is an
possible?
opportunity to address your colleagues.
Oh, okay.
That could be possible. It doesn't have to be the same continuous height, otherwise, break it down, start stepping it from here. Hide that as much as you can. But I still want to see the second floor pushed back further.
My thing is, like, if this came all the way wrapped around to here, it would resolve the front door being open and this big window. Almost like a big balcony kind of with a higher wall.
Okay, so what's your thoughts on the...
The bedroom is pushed back a
Right.
little bit.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting it be pushed back more?
Yeah, I would say a couple more feet. You see, that's just a regular, he's got two closets there. I think you can lose a couple more feet in there and push the...
Difficult to hear.
I said, if we could push the second floor on the bedroom, number, which one is it?
2.
Number 2. And also a couple more feet from the other bathroom and also the master bedroom. I'm just trying to push it back further from the neighbor. So it's not as intrusive.
If you imagine if someone's standing here in the bedroom,
Okay.
and there's a window here, from eye level, you drew a line. You may see some standing at the bedroom. Again, that's not a privacy issue because it's a bedroom, but, could you see the back of, could you see down here a part of that back? Yeah.
That garage is not there. Or whatever structure that is, it's not there.
It's not, because that's the pool?
That's the house.
Oh, that's the house.
So there's a pool and if you can you Google that, Mr.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the view of this portion of the house.
Yeah, the entire backyard.
There is a covered patio beyond the pool, though, for 1508.
We're here. It's right here. But again,
If I can share something with the board from our design review meetings with the applicants, we have some concern at staff level that if we push the house back further, we're going to have some possibly significant grading issues for possibly minimal gain in terms of privacy. Okay. The applicants had proposed a version of this where there were no windows at the second floor facing toward the neighbor. We felt that that created a very blank and unusual facade, but the applicants have just informed us that they're willing to go in that direction if the board wanted to see one or even all windows closed up at the second floor, if you felt that could address the issues.
He's already closed the middle portion of it. That's all it. Okay. Thank you, Mr. J. So who wants to make a motion or further discussion? How you feel about the project? We determined that the style was acceptable. The square footage numbers are acceptable, and the only concern that I have is the privacy issue, and I'm willing to entertain a motion.
My motion would be to extend that 6-foot wall all the way to the front. It's a privacy issue. If the bedrooms are not, we're not supposed to consider the privacy from those rooms. It's not an issue. Again, that's the only thing is the front door that was objected, and the living room window. And I think it could be a nice courtyard kind of feel on the inside with that. That would be my proposal.
Any concern about that balcony that we just talked about?
There's a 6-foot wall in front of it.
No, I'm talking about this. This is up higher.
Yeah, there's a 6-foot wall in front of that balcony. Off the master?
There's archway.
Above it.
Opening. Isn't that an opening?
Yeah, but above 6 foot,
Okay.
right?
The top of this wall is 6 feet above the floor level
Yeah.
on the second floor.
All right.
I mean, also, I mean, the scalloping, I'm not crazy. I don't think it goes with the house.
I think,
A straight
yeah, there's
wall.
these board
Recommend-
recommendations that
Yeah.
that we should,
Should go over it. Okay.
and the board has said, recommend approval with these 3 conditions. I mean, not the board, the,
The board doesn't have, I mean, the staff doesn't have any condition. It all says approve the project
I
as
have a
proposed.
There are 3 conditions after the,
Oh, there, oh, this.
When you say it should not be enlarged from 9 to 15, then we just said that.
that was written before we understood the building and safety
Okay.
code change, so we can ignore that staff condition.
The top of the sculpt wall should not be sculpted, or the top of the block wall should not be sculpted? What are you talking
Yeah, we thought a straight line
Straight line there?
between the posts
Okay,
would be
yeah,
appropriate
all right.
to the style. And then we also thought the parabolic window was more in keeping with the style than the one proposed today.
How about the, okay, parabolic fixed, how do you feel about that? I think it's a little more sensitive what he's got on the new one.
Yeah, I mean, I like the parabolic window better, but I think this one matches bedroom number 3's and the garage's arch.
To some degree, it's a moot point if you extend the wall across the
Right.
front there.
That's, yeah, that's it. But one question I had, staff notices, this is stucco, this is stone. Is there a reason for that?
I think we missed that.
Let's do a quick.
It may be a mistake on that one by how it was rendered.
Yeah, we agree stucco would be more appropriate.
Yeah, this one here,
Give balance to
the
that.
balance, this looks odd. Okay. So do I have a motion?
If we could repeat back the conditions, just so the board, everyone's on the same page. The board is in support of the Spanish colonial revival style.
Yes.
The board supports the square footage as proposed. Forgive me. The extension of the wall across from the porch across the front of the house, including the living room window toward the front door stairway area, would provide privacy from the common areas that would meet the condition that the board had imposed before. The site plan has already been revised to show the landscape design, and the house was lowered somewhat, about 17 inches from the previous proposal, so the profile was lowered somewhat from what was viewed before. We will delete staff comment 1 about the rear yard. We will add a condition that the wall at the front of the house not have a scallop profile and have a linear profile. And we will change the stone, or we'll delete the staff comment about the parabolic window, so the existing window will remain. And then on the balcony over the garage, the 2 cheek walls will both be stucco.
And if I may add, on the landscaping on that wall, all I see is shrubs. The only tree that I see is way up top in the corner, and I don't know if that serves any purpose on top there where all the oak trees are. Is there any way we could add some planting or some mature landscaping in front of the wall to further...
In front of the wall at the front?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could add taller landscaping there.
Because that oak tree is huge. It's already, the drip line is so high. And that will further help. Okay. So are we ready to make a motion, gentlemen?
Yes.
All right, let's go on.
I'd like to make a motion to approve with the conditions as noted.
Okay, there was a motion by Mr. Herman to approve the project with condition.
I second.
And a second by Mr. Sarkisian.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Herman?
Approved. What's the correct?
Yes.
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 Mr. Sarkisian?
Yes.
And Chairman Mardian?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Can we take a little break?
Yes, I just want to remind everyone that the project can be appealed. Appeal forms are available in permit services, and the appeal must be filed with the application and the appeal fee a minimum within the 15-day appeal period. So,
with the copy of the decision letter.
just to repeat, and there's been a request for a 3 or 5 minute recess.
3 minutes is fine for me.
3-minute recess. Okay, and we're back
Okay.
on.
Thank you. Back to the DRB. Next case is in Pennsylvania, 4201 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Mr. Chair, members of the board. The project is at 4201 Pennsylvania Avenue is a proposed 30-unit residential townhouse-style condominium development consisting of 9 buildings on the 1.63-acre site. The site is bounded by Pennsylvania Avenue to the east, the 210 freeway to the south, single-family homes to the west, and multifamily to the north. An unimproved portion of Encinal Avenue runs across the site, and this will be improved to serve as a driveway for the property. Let me shift the boards over here so you can see the other project plans. So here's the project site, Pennsylvania Avenue here, the freeway on-ramp here. This white area is Caltrans, part of the Caltrans right-of-way, or the on-ramp right-of-way, basically. There's an existing large townhouse, condominium, not townhouse, condominium project to the north here that also fronts Altura. There's single-family homes here to the west of the site along Encinal, an improved portion of Encinal. There's a combination of single-family homes and apartments just to the north here, this sort of northwest corner of the project. So I think that orients you. These are rendered perspectives of the project, the colored elevations, and then we've got elevations across Encinal Avenue and as seen from the 210 freeway roughly. And then the floor plans and topography. There are a total of 9 buildings across the site in 4 building types and 4 floor plans. Building types 1 and 2 are just mirror images, and each contains 3 units. The 5 most easterly buildings have reduced interior setbacks from the southerly property line at each floor. Building type 3 contains 4 units, and that's the westerly-most building. This building has reduced interior setbacks and interior street side setbacks from the Encinal frontage. Building type 4 is the 5-unit building sort of in the westerly portion of the site. All the buildings are separated by at least 12 feet. All the units have 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths, plus a den at the ground floor, along with where the parking is. The units range in size from 1,650 to 1,740 square feet. All the buildings are 3 stories tall, with heights ranging from 32 to 34 feet. Since the property is over 90 feet wide along Pennsylvania Avenue, a maximum of 3 stories and 36 feet is allowed. Parking will be provided by a combination of 2-car garages in each unit. Guest parking on the site will be scattered. There's an area right near Pennsylvania, and there is other guest parking consisting of parallel parking spaces along the Encinal driveway and some perpendicular spaces also along that with access from that driveway. To give a little history, the property was city-owned for many years and was designated as a park site and zoned for park development. But the city entered into an agreement with the property owner to exchange this piece of land for a hillside piece of property on Deer Pass Road in order to preserve the hillside open space. Development of the hillside was subsequently limited to 2 home sites. Development plans for a 23-unit project were approved on this project on this property in 2002 and 2003. And all those approvals have expired. At that time, environmental review was performed, a mitigated negative declaration was prepared for the 23-unit project, and an addendum to that mitigated negative declaration has been prepared for this project. Let me see if I have that to hand out to you. copies of it. I don't seem to have, unless I've already passed. Did you, by any chance, already give you a copy of the addendum at your positions?
Addendum today or?
Right.
No.
Okay. Can you maybe run it? We'll make the photocopies of that and make it available to you. We've also received a large number of, a significant number of email correspondence just today, and I will, I'll pass that out to you. Here's one. You can pass that down. There's another. There. Some more. Oh, here's the addendums. Found them on the bottom of the stack here. According to the North Glendale Community Plan, the property is located in the Crescenta Highlands area. The design criteria are given in Chapter 3 of that document and in the Comprehensive Design Guidelines, Chapter 5 for multifamily and mixed-use projects. Thank you. The 1.63-acre site slopes from north to south, falling approximately 6 feet from the northeast corner of the site to the southwest. From the northwest corner of the site to the southeast, I should say. The site is irregularly shaped with a narrow frontage on Pennsylvania and then the long depth from Pennsylvania over to the westerly portion of the site. The southerly portion of the Encinal right-of-way was vacated by the city in 2002 and is going to be is incorporated into the project site. Portion of that and a portion of, and then the northerly portion that is retained as right-of-way will be developed as essentially the driveway and parking area for the site. Access to the site is from Pennsylvania Avenue. There will not be any access other than emergency access westerly to the existing portions of Encinal Avenue. Because of the proximity of the 210 freeway to the project site, traffic engineering has recommended that only right turns be allowed into and out of the site, and the applicant has agreed to that condition of approval. This will be regulated, right turns will be regulated essentially by a raised concrete median in the center of Pennsylvania Avenue.
Do we have a drawing of that? What that looks like?
It might be.
Oh, I see it right there.
It's
Topography,
yeah. This is the existing. There's an existing median here, and this will essentially be extended, I think, up in this direction so that people can't. Or this might be it right here. This so people can't turn right, turn left into the site. Again, the applicant has agreed to this feature to limit movement in and out of the site. The garages that provide the parking for the bulk of the property are underneath on the ground floor and are accessed by a series of driveways extending off of the Encinal right-of-way. All the garages face each other, basically, except for the 5-unit building where the garages face to the north. There are no building frontages to the north that face south that would be looking at those garages. In the R2250 zone, which is the zoning for the site, 25% of the lot must be landscaped, and the applicant is providing more than the required amount of landscaping. It's also required to have a certain amount of common open space, and the applicant is exceeding the requirement for that. There's going to be open space areas beside some of the units and in south of the 5-unit building, and each of these areas will have some amenity like benches to promote people using those spaces actively. In general, Staff believes that the buildings are well situated on the site with appropriate and usable landscaping. We would note that options for access to the site are limited, but the project makes use of the Encinal right-of-way in an appropriate and reasonable manner. The mass and scale of the buildings appears to be appropriate given the site constraints. Most of the project obviously is abutting the freeway on-ramp, and at the west where the site abuts the single-family homes, the structures have been moved back to a distance of approximately 25 feet to provide some separation from those existing homes, one home in particular on the west side of the site. The proposed design establishes a series of three-story buildings with primary rectangular volumes. Each facade is designed to provide a limited amount of articulation using techniques including change in plane, parapet height, material texture, and color. The various orientations and groupings of the buildings allow different facade treatments to be seen from a single vantage point, providing some visual variety. The flat roof of each building is consistent with the rest of the style of the buildings, and the entries up to the units help break up the massing, with the end unit of each unit having a projecting first floor with a roof terrace at the second floor. Each unit has a private patio at the ground level that helps break up the ground level facades a bit. The public's primary view of the site will be from Pennsylvania Avenue, and since the easternmost building is set back some 60 feet, this helps the building recede a little bit from that primary public viewpoint. As mentioned earlier, the buildings are 32 to 34 feet tall, where 36 feet is allowed. I forgot to mention in the history, this project was the subject of several variances and a parking reduction application. The planning hearing officer on May 23rd of this year granted variances to allow reduced interior setbacks, to not provide subterranean or semi-subterranean parking as would normally be required for a project of more than 4 units, and to have an FAR of 0.9 where 0.85 is allowed. Also, what was granted at that time was a parking reduction permit to allow 16 of the required parking spaces to be on the public right-of-way adjacent to the site and not actually on the project site. Lot coverage, approximately 39% of the site will be covered with buildings, whereas 50% is allowed. In summary, the scale and massing of the buildings appears to be appropriate to the site, particularly given the position between the freeway and the large apartment building to the north. At the west and northwest portions of the site, the buildings have been pulled away from the smaller single-family and multifamily buildings to provide a physical separation and buffer that provides some space for some significant landscaping. The overall design provides a common vocabulary of building forms, massing, cladding, and cladding elements that maintain a consistent architectural concept. Variations in orientation and building grouping allow a certain level of visual variety through the interplay of various building planes, parapet heights, materials, textures, and colors. Raised portions of stucco cladding are offset by recessed planes clad with siding or differently colored stucco, providing some visual articulation and allowing for a play of shadows across the facades throughout the day. The variations in parapet height also help reinforce this articulation. These treatments are incorporated at all facades, including those that face the freeway, helping achieve a unified design treatment. The entry courts become the dominant feature apparent to pedestrians, with the projecting ground floor bay at the end units helping define the space and creating a more human scale. Entries to each unit are appropriately scaled and well-defined through the incorporation of canopies and the use of color. The proposed canopies incorporate diagonal tiebacks, which makes them appear less integrated into the rectilinear design than they could be. Staff recommends that the canopies be cantilevered to better reflect the overall design. The simple fences proposed at the entry courts help enliven the design by echoing the use of siding material at portions of the upper facades. There's a clear transition between the public and private spaces at these facades. The flush-mounted windows are appropriate to the crisp detailing of the design. At some locations, they are set into areas of raised stucco, providing some visual variety and giving the building wall a sense of depth. The exterior of the buildings will be clad with painted stucco and cementitious siding. Horizontal metal awnings will be above the front doors. Metal roll-up garage doors are proposed, as are code-required metal roof access ladders to the roof. These are being mounted on sides of the building away from those most commonly seen by the residents. In general, these materials are appropriate to the overall design. The proposed color scheme helps reinforce the hierarchy on the facades, with white being used at raised areas and tan and brown siding in the recessed areas and dark brown at the building base. Areas of brighter colors help enliven the composition without becoming dominant. Small meter rooms with flat roofs and flush-mounted wood doors will be attached to the buildings, and generally along the encinal driveway side. Because of the lower portions of the adjacent facades of each building are painted brown, staff recommends that the applicants consider using this color rather than the proposed white for the meter rooms to help integrate them into the base of the buildings more effectively. The paving will utilize a decorative stamped concrete pattern at the entrance to Pennsylvania, and the rest of the driveways will be asphalt. Roof-mounted air conditioning equipment will be screened by a parapet, and there won't be group trash areas. Trash cans will be stored within the individual garages, and the homeowners will be responsible for moving those trash cans out to the curb along the driveway, not out to Pennsylvania, but to the curb along the driveway for pickup by integrated waste.
Excuse me.
Yes.
For interrupting. So we're going to have 30 trash cans sitting in the sidewalk?
No, you're going to have roughly 60 trash cans.
So yeah, with the recycle and all that.
Yes. They're not going to be in the sidewalk. They're going to be
trash day. On trash day, yeah.
They're going to be along. They're going to be along the curb.
Yeah,
along the curb here.
Okay.
Along the curb here during trash pickup days. Okay. And we've checked to make sure that there's actually enough room to fit that many trash cans in, and there is.
This encinal here. This is encinal.
Yes, this is the portion of
public.
it. A portion of this is public, and a portion of it is actually privately held.
Is there a gate here?
There will not be a gate.
There's a gate at the back.
There'll be a gate. Yes, there'll be a gate. It'll be an emergency crash gate over here.
And what is that? Where does that go?
Well, it'll just go right across the.
No, I mean, where do you go?
It's just side street there.
Encinal Avenue. Encinal Avenue is an improved street over here, just west of the project site. So the crash gate will allow emergency vehicles to get in or out through there, but only emergency vehicles.
There's kind of there's some sort of extension here of.
Yeah, this is public right of way.
Existing.
And so the crash gate will allow vehicles to get through into there. But that will not be, there will be no pedestrian gate there for the public to walk through. The only access would be in the event of an emergency vehicle needs to get through there. No lighting details have yet been provided by the applicant, and we would recommend that the board require a detailed plan with cut sheets showing appropriate fixtures. In general, the design and details of the project provides a coherent architectural vocabulary, a cohesive architectural vocabulary that is expressed across the entire site while still providing some visual variety. The overall design is appropriate to the site, though some improvements, as noted in the conditions and considerations, could improve the project. With that, we have 2 recommended conditions: cantilever the canopies over the front doors and eliminate the tie-back rods. Provide a lighting plan as condition number 2, and then as a consideration, consider painting the utility cabinet on each building to match the adjacent color at the base to help make the flush-mounted doors less noticeable. You should have, at this point, emails from Mr. Bill Weissman. You should have an email from the Montrose Verdugo City Spar Heights Neighborhood Association. You should have an email from Nancy Camo. And you should have 2 emails with a substantial number of attachments from Ms. Sherry Stubbs. If you don't have all of those, please let me know and I'll get you those copies. I would note that Ms. Stubbs gave you some attachments of the North Glendale plan that indicate draft. I have the adopted North Glendale plan. I have compared the two. There are no substantial differences, though, in between the version that she's given you that's draft and the final version. I also have copies, if you like, of the design guidelines that have been mentioned in our staff report, and I believe will be brought up by the members of the public. If you'd like copies of those, I can pass those out. And I also have the architectural guidelines prepared by the applicant to describe his project, which you should have gotten in your packet, and if you haven't, I can pass that out to you also. With that, I've completed my staff report. Do you have any questions?
I had a question, Mr. Hamilton. The density here, is it the specific plan supersedes? Because based on my understanding that the the North Glendale specific plan is 19 unit per acre.
And this one's only 18 units to the acre.
Okay. And regular R2250 would allow 39 units? Is that what I...
It could go up to 30. Under the zoning, it could go up to 39, but under the specific plan or the general plan, it can only go to a maximum of 19 units.
And that rendering at the end, is that correct that the freeway is at this level or above, or is that?
It's a rendering. I can't guarantee the specific accuracy. I can tell you with certainty that the freeway is far, far above the project site and above the on-ramp at this location.
Right.
The on-ramp rises significantly, and there's a slope, significant slope down to the on-ramp, and I believe there's another slope down from here to the project site currently. Now, the project will be bringing in fill material to level it, to provide less of a grade change, and so that it'll be easier both for pedestrians and people. The applicant has mentioned that it'll facilitate better ADA compliance, and it'll make it easier for drainage and whatnot. They haven't shown on this rendering here that they're going to have a block wall along their property line here, which will be, I think there was a section that showed it, but I don't have it up. I think the block wall at this point on the easterlymost portion of the site will be up to 9 feet tall. Wow. But the applicant or his architect can provide details on that.
So you're up here, the driveway that is proposed now. When I was there, there's from the street level to that pad they have now, I would say maybe 5-6 feet drop.
On the screen behind you is a current photograph from Google Street View that shows the frontage of the site. You can't really see because of
I saw it. It's quite a bit of drop, yeah.
The fence, but yes, there's a substantial drop down from Pennsylvania to the...
So they're going to fill that out?
They're going to fill
it out to the street level, basically?
Basically.
Oh.
And other photographs across the project site are available for your review.
So they had the parking reduction to put the parking on the public right-of-way, or
yes,
parking exemption?
They're providing the necessary number of spaces, but because some of them are not on the site itself, some of them are on the right-of-way, they asked for and the city granted the parking reduction permit.
And what about these 5 other parking spaces that you have here? Are those guest parking?
They need a, let me see, they need a total of
8, I think, or whatever.
I think they need a total of 8 guest parking spaces.
Guest parking, right.
So up in the front here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2 of these would be guest parking. The rest are just required parking for the site.
So those are going to be assigned to the units?
No.
Those are guest parking. Where's the common area, Jeff? Sorry.
That's right. There are common areas here. This qualifies, and an area over here qualifies as common area. It's common open space.
Does that meet the requirement of 200 or 150 square feet per unit?
Yes.
Thank you.
I mean, we're talking about both common open space and individual private open space.
I'm talking about common.
Yes, they meet the standard for both common and private.
But it's not really usable, but I'll get into that a little later. Thank you. Any other questions to staff? Are you done, Mr. Hamilton?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Then we'll start with the public. Any questions before I open the public here? Thank you. I'll go with the applicant, Eric Everhart.
The arrows. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Honorable Design Review Board and members of the staff. Thank you very much for having us. My name is Eric Everhart. I'm Vice President of Development for the Olson Company, and it is my honor and privilege this evening to be able to present to you an exciting residential community that we're confident will become a jewel in the city of Glendale. We're going to be calling it Crescenta Walk. But before that, I'd like to just start out with just making a couple of quick points, key points regarding the site. One is that zoning is in place. We could have built a rental project here, very boxy, by right. However, we've designed an attractive townhome community that provides better transition and a better neighborhood. The neighbors did appeal the variances, and we met extensively with them, and we revised the site plan, enhanced the setbacks, and added additional landscaping. The neighbors were happy with our modifications and dropped the appeal. Given the adjacencies, freeway, apartments, Pennsylvania, three-story townhomes, we believe that our townhome community is the ideal transitional solution to the site. There we go. Okay. The Olson Company, again, takes great pride with our reputation as a quality, LEED-certified builder. We are environmentally sensitive, and we build exclusively in the state of California. Infill sites are our specialty, and we provide outstanding and innovative solutions to problematic sites such as this. We've been awarded many awards. We're California's leading in-town developer. Olson has been granted over 80 industry awards for design and quality. We've been ranked nationally in the top 5% in customer satisfaction over the last several years. Olson is a good corporate citizen, and we're involved in the communities long-term through our Champion program. One of the awards that we're most proud of is the Customer Service Award. This award is a national award, and all the national builders participate in getting this award. Olson Company was number one nationally. We're proud to have also built in Glendale before. You may recognize this. This is Arden Walk, and it's right there at the corner of Arden and Central. You would look at that and think, gosh, that was built yesterday, but actually it was built over 8 years ago. There seems to be no question that when the Olson Company, we work very hard so that we bring in the right product, enhance the values of the surrounding community. This is the site. It's been vacant and blighted since the construction of the 210 freeway, which is over 50 years ago. Let's see. Is that clear? Because it looks a little bit out of focus. Is that okay for everybody? Must be me? Okay. As you can tell, the adjoining neighborhood has a mix of uses. It has single-family, 3-story townhomes, 3-story apartments, 2-story commercial. Bottom line, it's very eclectic in its nature, but that's not unusual for Glendale, and it's actually what makes Glendale great. Different, new, exciting, not bland, not decaying. Again, as noted, we're trying to, with our development, we believe that this slide speaks volumes, and we've tried to incorporate all of the elements within the west side single family, respecting that, respecting the multifamily to the north. We have office and building, busy, transitional Pennsylvania Boulevard, and of course we have the 210 freeway directly adjacent to us. One of the reasons that you'll see that we did our site the way we did it is we pulled toward the freeway so that we could create that kind of buffer that exists for the community, and we felt it was best to do so.
You have 1 more minute left.
Okay, again, this is adjacent neighborhoods, as you can see. And we'll move kind of through this very quickly. This site also speaks volumes in the sense that it shows non-articulated rear of the adjacent townhome apartments to the north of us. Olson's new product articulates on all 4 sites. The Olson Company clearly understands that this site has been vacant and blighted to the neighborhood. We worked very hard in working with the current zoning to bring the right answer to the site. Again, it was tempting not to pursue more of a rental type of answer to that, but we just felt that it wasn't in the best interest of the neighborhood to do so, and we're very interested in bringing to this area a development that will be welcomed by everyone. We have worked honestly and diligently with city staff to arrive at a harmonious solution to this site. And ultimately, the site does transition to the freeway. But we worked together with creative minds to provide this solution. And we believe this site plan transitions smoothly onto Pennsylvania. The design allows the community to be in harmony with the R2250 zoning. The site plan does step down in topography, and because of the higher freeway, we believe that the project is properly parked according to high city standards. The street width and circulation, we've worked with the fire department.
Stop you. Your time is up. Sorry. We have quite a few speakers. Thank you. And
Thank you.
my next speaker is there an architect who wants to speak, or the consultant? Okay. I have Peter Duarte, or?
I should go first.
Okay, there it is. It says consultant project manager. There's 2 of you.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present this project. I think it's already been established.
State your name, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Ricky De La Rosa. I'm with Withey Malcolm Architects. You need my address as well?
No, that's fine.
Like as I was stating, I think it's already been established that this is a very difficult site because of its adjacencies, being next to the freeway. We have a condominium project in the north and single family, and so we tried to design a project that provided the appropriate transition for the existing context. And I think, we succeeded in that. And we were also faced with a challenge that we knew we had to be original and creative because of the site context. As previously stated, the zoning allows a much bigger footprint, bigger project, a taller building. But, in order to provide at the end to the end user, we had to be very sensitive to that. So we purposely oriented the buildings to create this courtyard scheme, which is perpendicular to the freeway, and that way it minimizes the impact of the freeway on the existing building, and it also minimizes the scale of the building along the freeway's edge. And we also utilize Encinal as a means to buffer the scale and create privacy to the neighbors on the north, and which I think we succeeded in that. And this solution was reached because we had analyzed the site for its site constraints and opportunities, and we felt that what could have been perceived as a constraint we took advantage of and made it as an opportunity for us. As you can see, the way the buildings are modulated, we did them in small pieces to give it a sense of a more cohesive residential community. On the elevations, we utilized simple modulations to identify each of the unit, identify each of the entrances, and we also put deliberate emphasis on establishing a horizontal and vertical module, within each of the building components. We played a lot with the scales and the proportions of each of the pieces. That way, at least, because the buildings were facing each other, we didn't want the scale to overwhelm the pedestrians. In terms of the color, we went with basic earth tones with vibrant accents, just to give a unique quality. A lot of the adjacent buildings are somewhat dated, and so we wanted to provide something that was a little more current. We provided change in materials to enhance your overall design and visual interest. With what Mr. Hamilton had stated, we have various materials: stucco, siding, articulation of the base with color, and a splash of unique colors of the individual units, just to at least give it a really contemporary and homey feel to it. So that pretty much summarizes the effort that we put forward, and we're available for questions. Thank you.
Since I have you here, sir, you're the architect, right, or the consultant? I want to clarify the issue of you raising the grade. How is that? Can you explain to us?
We have our civil engineer who could.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is he going to speak, or?
No, but he can answer that question.
Okay. Can you come?
Can I, well, all right. I had an architect question, but go ahead. You can do that.
Good evening, board members. My name is Vincent Scarpati. I'm a registered civil engineer. I'm not sure I understand your question. We haven't raised the grade on the site. We sort of followed the grade on the site from Pennsylvania to the west.
So you're not building up the grade?
We're not building up the grade, no, sir.
So you're ramping down then from the street? Because there's a substantial grade elevation difference from Pennsylvania to the pad that you have right now.
Along the east side, that particular pad is close in elevation to Pennsylvania Avenue. And as we move to the west, we raise up as the existing grade raises up. There's about 16 feet of fall, 15 feet of fall from the westerly end of the site to Pennsylvania Avenue.
My question is, when you're here, you have to drop down to get to the level. There's a ramping coming down. It's much lower elevation.
We're about a 1453, I believe, at Pennsylvania Avenue, and I believe that particular finished floor is on the order of 1455, so it's just a little bit higher than the street, and it's consistent with the grades, the contours, as they move from east to west.
I'm kind of puzzled because your elevations show that the whole grade is straight. I mean, your whole finished floor, the garage line is all straight. There's no, it's because I was there a few times, and you have to kind of ramp down to the property somehow with this driveway that you have. It's not a straight transition. It's not a flat grade from here to...
No, it's not. It's going up as you go from east to west. It's going up very gently at about 2%.
It's also going down.
And then we're pushing, that's correct, and then we're pushing down, I'm sorry, as we go to the south.
Right.
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't understand your question. We're doing that in an effort to minimize the walls that we have along the southerly property line, because there is sort of a gully, if you will, on the Caltrans right-of-way, and then there's a huge upslope to the ramp.
So my question is, are you raising the grade? I mean, raising the elevation of the pad?
We're matching the elevations as we go east to west. We're not raising. We're not higher with these finished floors than the existing ground today.
So closer to the freeway, you're not higher? As you come down.
Yeah, yes, closer to the freeway, we are a bit higher, yes, sir.
Yes, so you're
Yes,
going to build
that's
up
why
that
we have
part.
yes, because there's a gully there. If you've been out there, you'll see that there's a gully there. I don't know why. It gullies down, and then it raises up very quickly to accommodate the ramp to the freeway.
Okay.
This is the gully.
Yes, if you, right, just southerly of the site, between the ramp and the property line, there's sort of a gully, there's sort of a dip there, and that's one of the reasons why a wall is required. But if you look at Pennsylvania Avenue and you look at the grades on the site, we are matching those very well as we go from east to west. It's an off-site condition that forces that wall.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yes.
Peter Duarte?
Can I ask a
Sure.
question of the architect?
You may come up, sir.
The renderings show change of plane on the facades. The colored stucco.
For out of the white and the brown
white.
planes, yes.
What is that dimension, the change of plane?
Right now, we were concerned 2x4 furring on the main wall. So you have the 0 plane and a 4-inch plane. It's a 4-inch recess on some of the planes, building planes.
So all these articulations, very excellent point, Mr. M. All these articulations that you're showing us today, they only offset 4 inches
4 inches.
throughout all the structures. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Peter Duarte?
Hello, Board. My name is Peter Duarte, registered landscape architect with the company StudioPad. And I was just going to discuss briefly a little bit on the overall landscape programming. Again, as mentioned earlier, just due to the constraints and the site orientation in the buildings, the landscape areas got fairly narrow and pinched. And then that sort of explains, and also creates the spaces that we do have. In early discussions and discussing the buyer profile and being probably young professionals, it was seen as being more of a potential pet-friendly community. So the idea was, versus making it, like larger seating areas adjacent to the freeway ramp, where we might have some noise and whatnot, it was seen as being more of this pet-friendly community, and it'd be more of like a walking experience versus having like a larger, common area. So just looking at the elements, then we took that idea of having these, these benches and using that as sort of a common element that would then occur throughout. So as you come in through the street, you got the sidewalk, we've got a couple benches there, and then as you carry down to the south portion of the 5-unit building, that's where we've got our sort of a larger common area. So that there we visioned as being more of like a dog run. And, instead of using turf, which is a little more of a high water usage, using of a ground cover that would sustain that pet use. We've got a couple pole lights, so it would be lit. And then again, I think when we get to construction documents, we may actually look at the final placement of the benches, but that was kind of the overall idea that, the common spaces function that way. And by having each unit having their own private yard, that being their own little private jewel, where they would maybe have their guests and sit-down activities. And then just from an overall planting, it's just going to be a pretty clean, mass planting palette. We're going to try to, relate to the architecture in that sense. The trees are more of a vertical. We do have a combination of evergreen and deciduous, but we're providing the evergreen trees on the perimeters to help with the screening and the buffering. We're leaving some of that open on the south side of those buildings because there is a lot of existing trees there. The thought was maybe leave a little bit of that openness so there's some sunlight coming into those buildings, the first 3 or 4 grouping of buildings. And then using some specimen magnolias, at the entry where we have that enhanced entry paving, as well as at the end of the walks. And then where we do get really tight against the PL walls, we're actually looking at using some colorful combination of evergreen and colorful vines that'll be attached to the northerly walls and the western walls to kind of get some of that color and green all year round.
Question, the courtyards, the private spaces, are they stamped concrete as well?
Right now, the walkways coming in would be like a medium top cast finish concrete coming in. But I believe the thought is right now is to allow the homeowner some option after they buy what they want to do if they wanted to expand the hardscape. And so right now it's a combination of hardscape and planting.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
Great,
I'm
thank
sorry. I'll go to the next speaker, Grant Michaels.
Good evening. I'm Grant Michaels. I'm representing the Montrose Verdugo City Spar Heights Neighborhood Association. We have been working with, or been involved in developing and supporting the North Glendale Community Plan. Those are the basis for most of our concerns. We do appreciate the efforts that the Olson Company has gone to present the project to the community and understand the complexities of this particular project. But with the project being built on the variances, we are concerned with many of these exceptions to the North Glendale Plan being seen as a precedent to other developments. This is the first large project that is being presented under the North Glendale Community Plan. The subterranean parking variance, the setbacks are of great concern to us. With the setbacks, particularly for the second, and in this case what would be the third stories, the North Glendale Plan encourages setting back upper stories to minimize the mass. Looking at this particular design, the white frame actually moves forward, and with this color scheme, it makes that part of the mass more visible. With the subterranean parking, the goal is to minimize the building heights. With the grading that will be done across this lot, it will be essentially flat. Looking at the designs from an aerial view, the bottom story being darker does sort of blend that down. But when you're looking at it from a street view, the darker portion will be clearly visible, and the more prominent, lighter portion of the mass will make it even more massive. Looking at the design, the Crescenta Highlands is an eclectic mix. Primarily it is rural and suburban. The modern design doesn't seem to fit, particularly with this property being at Pennsylvania, which is a major entrance to the Crescenta Highlands. Looking at the design for Arden Walk, which is a more traditional design, that would seem to be more appropriate, and in this case, minimize some of the impacts of this more modern design. We at the Montrose Verdugo City Neighborhood Association is very interested in protecting the neighborhood communities and what we have, as well as supporting the tenets of the North Glendale Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Mary Lynn Fisher. You can bring it up. Thank you. Sherry Stubb.
My name is Sherry Stubbs. I live at 3200 Fairesta Street, about 6 blocks directly north of the project. Earlier today, I sent you an email. I'm hoping you got it. It contains 6 pages of citations directly from the plan and the comprehensive design guidelines. And they are so important. I'm fearing that you didn't. I want to say a couple. To encourage originality, creativity, and diversity in design, and to avoid monotony. This design is over the top. It is extreme. It is a series of cookie-cutter, cold, rectangular boxes with a flat roof completing the box. There is no warmth or personality. It is clearly monotonous and repetitive. It is out of place for our valley. Rather, it presents as an industrial office complex, which would more appropriately be sited, such as can be seen along the 101 freeway in Woodland Hills. Another citation. Prior to designing the overall site plan of the project, a review of the mass and scale of surrounding properties is important. In addition to necessary zoning code review for allowable heights and setbacks, a review of surrounding context relative to mass and scale is essential. Transition to single-family neighborhoods. Portions of multifamily and/or mixed-use buildings that face or are directly adjacent to single-family homes should provide a meaningful transition to neighboring context. I would like to also say that the position that the variances in this case were erroneously granted, and I would like to submit at some point a paper on that. Tonight is not the night. But these points are so important that I'm even asking that the hearing be continued for you to look at them. 6 pages of citations. The Encinal is not a driveway. The proposal specifically states that it will be a public street with signage stating such. The current condition of the property, whether unsightly or not, has no bearing on whether or not a project should be built. If the project is wrong, it is wrong. Precedent is extremely important. To allow this project would be set a negative precedent for future development in our valley and destroy its character. If we're going to talk development, I would like you to look at this picture, and I'll give it to Vilya so she can hand it out. This development represents good design, architecture, materials, appropriate mass and scale, definition, character, and warmth. Everything the proposed plan does not have. The development shown in this picture is suited to our community. The proposed project is not. And I ask again to continue, or the project is just wrong. It should not be built. If you'll give this to them. There's no indigenous or natural materials used in the project. Another condition. Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am, your objection is not the number of dwelling units, it's the way the building is designed?
The whole thing.
But style.
Style, density, the whole thing. It is not conducive to our community. And there's a vision plan in here that you will find. It's modern. It's cookie cutter boxes. It doesn't fit in our community at all.
Thank you very much. You've answered my question. Thank you. Okay. Ken Goldman.
Good evening. My name is Ken Goldman. I live at 3346 Rita Street, up the hill from the site. The topography of the parcel bears directly on staff's recommendation that variances were granted regarding the subterranean parking and number of required spaces. The effects of those variances are directly pertinent to the determinations members of the Design Review Board will have to make regarding mass scale transition of the project, and they conflict with implementation of height restrictions of the North Glendale Community Plan. Staff report of 8 May 2013 states, quote, there is significant slope across the property from north to south necessitating either extensive grading or significant import of fill to make the garages subterranean. This alleged finding directly conflicts with 2 separate appraisals prepared for the city. One from '95 refers to the parcel as generally level with a southerly slope. A more recent one from 2009 describes the parcel as, quote, level and at street grade, and later on, developable with no specific restriction. Apart from these official city commissioned reports, a simple stroll over to the site reveals how level it is. Code states a variance may be granted only if there are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved or to the intended development of the property that do not generally apply to other property in the same zone or neighborhood. That there is no such circumstances is addressed directly in the '95 appraisal. Quote, the topography of the parcel is generally flat and drains to the south boundary. This topography is consistent with the general topography of the area. Unquote. Implicit in the term subterranean parking is the fact that a fair amount of earth must be moved in order to accomplish it. The parcel is essentially level. How then is this an exceptional circumstance? There would appear to be no valid reason to grant the variance. Absent the aforementioned variance, there is no need to consider parking reduction permit. But to consider it anyway, the staff report indicates that code requires a proposed development to provide 83 parking spaces. Developer agrees to provide 60 and 32 car garages, plus 6. The remaining 19 would be ad hoc curbside along the mandated Encinal continuation. This extra parking is limited by the fire department's requirement that the entire southerly curb along Encinal be no parking to ensure emergency vehicles can access the property. It is likely further limited by the Encinal continuation being a public street, which means it will be open to non-residents as well to park their cars. This leaves the potential to deny all 19 street spaces to the development's residents and guests. The 2 extra spaces are therefore illusory, and only the 66 dedicated spaces can be relied on. The North Glendale Community Plan and the Comprehensive Design Guidelines function to protect the character of our neighborhoods and the residents' enjoyment of the place they have chosen to live. These newer, more restrictive regulations should, as is common practice, control over the broader zoning restrictions. Variances that subvert that basic tenet work against the community, and the regulations they are supposed to protect.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Good timing. Bill Weissman.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Pro Tem, board members, city staff, and the public. My name is Bill Weissman from far north Glendale, and I'd like to speak tonight regarding the CEQA addendum to the original mitigated negative declaration dating from 2003, 10 years ago. Now, the addendum basically is there to continue to use that 10-year-old negative declaration unless, according to the CEQA guidelines, there are substantial changes in the environment or there are substantial changes in the project that justify the preparation of a subsequent negative declaration. And I'm here tonight to argue that, yes, indeed, there have been substantial changes since that original 2003 negative declaration that invalidate some of the conclusions, specifically with regard to Section O of that negative declaration, which covers transportation and traffic. There are 5 separate items I'm going to mention. Item number 1, the current project is for 30 units, whereas the original negative declaration was for 23 units. Number 2, the most recent weekday traffic study obtained from the City of Glendale Traffic Engineering Department showed a little over 21,000 vehicles per day counted on Pennsylvania between Altura and Encinal. This study was conducted on November 4th, 1999. It is not logical nor acceptable that a vehicle count performed in 1999 should be the factual basis for claiming in 2013 that the project will have no impact on existing traffic loads, capacity of the street system, or level of service standards. A new traffic study should be required. Number 3, the intersection of Pennsylvania and Altura was signalized in 2004, again, after the original negative declaration was produced. This represents a significant change in circumstances which has not been assessed regarding traffic flow in the immediate area of the project. Item number 4, on-ramp metering was implemented on both the eastbound and westbound I-210 on-ramps from Pennsylvania Avenue in 2008 as part of the Caltrans congestion relief project. This on-ramp metering caused a significant traffic backup onto Pennsylvania Avenue during the morning rush hour. And finally, as a condition of approval of the current project, which was not a requirement for the previous project, the raised center median on Pennsylvania is going to cause all kinds of problems because of no left turns in and out. It's going to force residents who want to go up to Foothill Boulevard to shop to go south. They have to turn right and make a U-turn before they can go north. And if they're getting off the freeway, they will have to make a U-turn at Altura before they can go south to get into their driveway. And it will also affect the driveway of the apartment building immediately to the north of the project because they are allowed left turns in and out of their driveway, but that center median is going to occupy what is currently a center turn lane. They can now queue up for left turns in that center turn lane and be out of traffic. Once that median is installed, the only place for them to queue up in is going to be in the leftmost traffic lane on northbound Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Sir. Susan Bolin.
Hello, my name is Susan Bolin. I live at 3528 Prospect Avenue. I'm on the steering committee for the Crescenta Valley Community Association and a former member of the North Glendale Community Plan Advisory Committee. My children have attended Glendale schools since 1996. I currently have a sixth grader attending Lincoln Elementary, and believe me when I tell you that I pass this project area at least 4 times a day, taking kids to school, going to work, all of those. Excuse me. The Pennsylvania, Altura, New York, and Maryland are very congested due to both freeway and school traffic. I have several concerns with the project, and I would like you to take into consideration. First of all, research shows that people living near freeways have decreased lung capacity, lung function. This lot is about as close to as you can get without actually sitting on the actual freeway. It's right there, as you saw on your tour. Altura, Encinal, and Maryland do not have any additional parking, so any overflow parking cannot park on those streets, which are immediately adjacent to this project. Installing the hot dog median that Bill described in front of this project will cause residents to go around the block when they're entering or exiting the project. And what that means for me personally is all of that traffic is going to go right past Lincoln Elementary, or on the other side, Crescenta Valley High School. So that's definitely a concern for me. The demographic of the surrounding apartment buildings in the area is families. And there's no reason to believe that there won't be families in this condo complex. And currently, Glendale Unified Schools are at capacity. So if there are families in the complex, where are those children going to go to school? The North Glendale plan emphasizes the desire of the community to reduce density, to move away from box-style multifamily designs, and to protect views. I'm not requesting that you reject this project. I'm requesting that you seriously consider the spirit of the North Glendale plan in making your decisions about design. Please consider reducing the number of units, maybe to like 23. That will reduce the effects on parking, traffic, and school enrollment, and it will also help with the transitional space to single-family residences to the west and the need for variances for setbacks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sharon Wiseman.
Thank you. I'm Sharon Weissman from Far North Glendale, and I also was on the North Glendale Community Plan Advisory Committee. And just want to explain perhaps why so much of this information is coming up now. Several of us in Crescenta Valley Community Association have had concerns about this project and its negative impact on the valley. Many of the facts presented tonight might better have been provided to the planning hearing officer at the variance hearing. Unfortunately, we ordinary citizens didn't really understand the process well enough to have a more effective presentation at that time. But please don't let our ignorance result in overdevelopment of this site. Our lack of familiarity shouldn't allow an inappropriately large complex in this already overcrowded area. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Sharon O'Connor.
Hello, my name is Sharon O'Connor. I live at 3260 Encinal Avenue. My property, the entire east side of my property is bordering the west side of this project, the entire west side of this project. Let me start with the easement, just to make sure they are putting that gate there. There's no walk. I've had several meetings at my home with all of our neighbors. That was high priority, that this have minimal to zero impact. That gate helps, so make sure that doesn't go away should this project proceed. As soon as there's a way to walk through there, everybody's going to park on our side, walk into that community. So that needs to stay. Gosh, there's so many things that were already covered. I don't want to go into it too many things. It is going to infect the schools. I want to say that. Maybe, I know there's a lot of taxes collected. I hope they're going to put directly into this community and build some bungalows on the elementary and all the places, because they are at capacity. I've had people that can almost touch the school from their house have to drive their child to another school. Not good. The coloring, I think, is important. It's already been touched on. I think I want to say a few things and get them into record that may not have to do with the exact design of this building. This lot became blighted once there was a deal made between the City of Glendale and Ganges, and then Ganges proceeded to use it as a construction dumping zone. And they have used that, and it's been allowed by the City of Glendale, because no matter how many complaints there have been, it's been allowed that. It's not just zoned for storage, it's not zoned for a dumping ground, but that's what it's been used for better than 10 years. The elevations have changed quite a bit. My property is now flooded on a regular basis. They have brought dirt in. I think dirt's been pulled from that when they put in the freeway. I've lived in the community for more than 45 years. So I have a strong history. If you want to know anything about the lot, I have a good history on it. That raised medium, I'm jumping all over the place. I'm sorry, I didn't take notes while everybody else was talking. Hopefully it's not the typical raised mediums in La Crescenta, asphalt, non-decorative. I hope something on the Pennsylvania raised medium, if you put one in there and screw up traffic a little bit more, at least maybe it can look nicer than what is typically done in La Crescenta. It is an eclectic neighborhood. The North Glendale Community guidelines, is that the 1 minute or is that the 3 minute?
3 minutes.
3 minute. All right, well, I didn't get very organized, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. My last speaker is John Polakowski. Yes. I almost got it.
Almost got it. Sharon's my wife. I live at 3260 Ensign also.
All right.
And obviously you know that we border the property. What I have to say, everybody has spoken, but since I am directly affected, we have met with the developers, and we've had meetings at our house with people on our street on Encinal. And we met with them once. They presented their project, and then I met again with just my neighbors. And I have to say, for a developer, they've done a pretty good job of listening to us about our immediate concerns. And that was they pulled their footprint back 25 feet. You have to imagine, I have a single-story house, the rest of the neighborhood single-story houses. When you have a three-story building up close to the property line, it's a shadow. So they did pull the footprint back 25 feet. And they provided us with an agreement that they will plant large evergreens along that border to further buffer that area. And this is, we're all talking about my easterly border there. So they have a 9-foot planter. I don't know if it's in your working drawings there, but there's a 9-foot planter there, which is substantial. So can't really comment on the architecture or anything like that, but as far as, I just want to say the Olson Company has kind of softened the blow of having this large project and the transition into the neighborhood by pulling that setback back for us. So that was a concern, and the gate, that fire gate, and the no pedestrian access. I'm speaking for my neighbors. This was a major concern, and we want to make sure it stays that way. Because just as my wife spoke, we don't want people cruising through there, kids scrambling over whatever, and using that encinal, which is, by the way, a very narrow street. I think it's only 14, 15 feet wide at that spot. And I want to make one comment. I don't know about code enforcement. For 10 years, I've been calling on that property, and the only response I got was from the fire marshal. So, and they did bring in, I would say, close to 1,000 yards of dirt. Maybe it was from Deer Pass, I don't know, but they dumped a lot of dirt there. And we did flood, and hopefully the civil engineer has got that taken care of in the plan and the grading. Basically,
Thank you, sir.
say.
I just want to remind the public that this board reviews the architectural design, mass and scale, and compatibility with the neighborhood. Although this is a large project, traffics are concerned, but that's not under our purview, to my understanding, if staff can correct me.
Yes, we review traffic in the planning division, but for the board, you don't have the expertise. We do have one of the city's traffic engineer is here if you have any questions about issues that were raised.
I don't have any other speakers. I'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I would say the board indirectly reviews traffic through your review and sometimes adoption of environmental documents.
Now, since you raised the environmental issue, are we supposed to certify this document, or it's already been done?
No, you don't need to do that. Addendums do not need to be certified by the board.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'll close the public hearing.
Actually, just before we forget, the applicant has a 2-minute
rebuttal,
rebuttal
yes.
period.
Thank you very much. You may come up, Mr. Olson.
First of all, I'd like to thank John and Sharon for coming up. We've worked extensively with that neighborhood group to arrive at this, what we believe is the best design for this site. I didn't notice that there was any neighbors that spoke or anyone here that was from the impacted neighborhood. That says something. Again, looking back to the other points that I'd made previously, we do have, the zoning is in place for this. There's options that can be built by right that we're choosing not to do because we believe it's in the best interest of everybody. We're a very conscientious builder. But again, we've worked with the neighborhood full extent that we could, provided additional landscaping, additional setbacks, really worked intensively to try to reach out and include everyone. Everyone's not going to go along with the project. It's just like some people like Rembrandt, some people like Picasso. But everybody would say there's value in their art. That's what makes Glendale great, is the eclecticness that it has. This is a different project. It's designed to be modern and contemporary. You're not going to see a whole lot of, different things going on that, you could do Spanish like next door, but it would look old and it would look dated. It's not what we wanted to do. Again, we have some very harsh adjacencies that are going to be a challenge to us as a developer to try to reach out and try to bring in the type of home buyer that would see that experience by living there as an enhancement to their lifestyle. We believe that we can create that. Thank you very much for this opportunity. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Close the public hearing. Does anybody have questions?
The setback that we talked about at the back mentioned that it's 25 feet. I see 22 and...
22, 8.5?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We can't talk from the back here.
Yes, you may. Come on up, sir. I'll open the public hearing.
The adjacency from the face of the building to the PL line is basically slightly over 23 feet. From the PL line to the home of the adjacent westerly neighbor is 5 feet.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions.
The gentleman.
One is this a lead project? Because you mentioned that.
Yeah, we are, a lot of people throw that around, but we are actually a certified lead builder. We built the first LEED certified silver project in Orange County that was ever done. Every project that we build is LEED certified.
I have
Sir?
a question for. Can I ask the architect?
Sure, you can come on. Yeah. Architect, please.
Did you? I noticed you've got most of the windows are vinyl sliding. Did you at all consider using like aluminum windows, maybe casements, awning type windows?
I didn't consider using casement windows because I wanted to maximize the amount of light that came in and the operation of the casement as well. You know, cranking more parts could break. And so in terms of the contemporary feel, I have some wider glazing modules that I wanted to create. Aluminum, there's a perceived, in the marketplace, you know, where the value, you know, do you go with aluminum or you go with vinyl? The buyers and more in the market rate tend to go for vinyl in terms of its efficiencies as well. Them being a lead builder, the aluminum, the conduction, the heat, the temperature changes affect the construction of the window. So we always go with vinyl first.
And
but they're you know, dual pane vinyl windows.
And one other question on the roof access. You've got these roof access ladders with these cages. Did you consider just accessing the roofs from inside the units through a hatch?
You know, it's more of a builder choice as well, because then you would have to go within the unit. You'd have a hatch, and the assembly sometimes depends on, like, on the bigger buildings. When I have to group the buildings in terms of the areas, sometimes with the penetration of the type of construction, it becomes more restrictive. You know, if you have to replace a unit, you'd have to paint it in anyway, and having the stair on the outside is less of an inconvenience for the resident.
So they're
It is a
package
nice
units. They're package units. They're not a split system.
Well, they're individual.
I understand, but there's the package units
Yeah.
on the roof. You come down with a shaft.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have a couple of questions to staff. Speakers always keep mentioning that this doesn't fit the specific plan guidelines. Can you elaborate on that? Because I looked at the specific plan. My question is, why is the front, the street front is a parking, guest parking? I thought the specific plan calls out more putting the building closer to the street.
Yeah, and we're talking about the North Glendale Community Plan rather than the specific plan. And this is the document that we worked with many of the people in the audience to put together a couple of years ago. And, no project is going to meet every goal of every set of guidelines. And what we find with this project is that we were able to make findings that were very tailored to the specific site we're dealing with, which is a very unusual site anywhere in Glendale, with some very serious constraints. And when we were looking at, for example, style, we didn't think the style was inappropriate, even though there's some disagreement in the community, obviously. And in large part, that was because of this extremely eclectic nature of the site that we're looking at and its adjacency to the freeway. When we were thinking about the massing of the project, most of the site, 2/3 or more of the site, is adjacent to a huge apartment building that if that was proposed today, we'd be, 4 times as many people would be here. So we were able to make findings that the massing was appropriate. And then when we brought it in as a kind of an overall sensibility, when we were looking at the fine-tuning aspects of the project compared to where we started with the project team, we think they were able to come up with a design that did respect certain levels of depth and articulation. We were given constraints from the project that, there was a certain square footage requirement for their pro forma that led to kind of a certain boxiness of the buildings. So we took that as kind of a base module that we were trying to work with them to kind of mediate the boxiness of it through the application of some of this furring, the use of materials, bringing changes of color and texture to the project, changing the parapet heights. But a large part of that was predicated on what we were thinking was, as Chair Mardian just mentioned, the view from the street, where the buildings are really set back considerably from the street. There'll be landscaping, buffering between the street and the buildings, as well as this guest parking area. We don't have a requirement that a multifamily building be brought directly to the street in the same way that we would with a commercial building.
So if this was a commercial site,
we wouldn't have a 60-foot setback on a commercial site, certainly not.
That's, yeah.
But I can't emphasize enough that, when there may be questions from the community about this, but we really did see this site, between this long, skinny site right next to the freeway, as something that we're not going to be seeing really anywhere else in North Glendale in the future, or anywhere throughout Glendale very often. And we thought that this was an appropriate response to the site, following the guidelines.
Thank you.
And why weren't underground parking required? Or why do you guys give the variance for that?
The hearing officer determined that he could make the findings in support of the variance. Part of it was the notion that if you went subterranean, it might actually create more massing and more boxiness. I was concerned in my staff report. I mentioned my concern with a reduced amount of landscaping if you went subterranean, and it is also basically impossible for the applicant from his pro forma standpoint to contemplate doing that kind of subterranean project. So that's why he applied for the variance, and the hearing officer felt that the findings were there, that there was enough uniqueness to the site, that there were enough constraints on the site, that there were enough challenges to the site that it warranted granting the variance.
Thank you.
Mr. Hamilton, can you explain to me the zoning interpretation on that? Because I thought when you have for example, 7,500 square feet lot, you could do 3 units on grade without going subterranean, because 4 is the cutoff. But there was at one time, I don't know if the interpretation has changed, when you have a large lot and these buildings are detached, there are 3 units, for example, should not exceed 3 units, you're okay to do a surface parking structure without going through a variance. Is that not the way?
That's not the way we implement. That's not the way we view the requirement. The basic requirement is if it's more than 4 units, or if your overall density is more than 1 for every 2,250. If either of those thresholds is breached, then you have to go subterranean.
Where does that rule come when you have 1 unit for 2,500 square feet dwelling unit area? That's 7,500 square feet lot area that where you could do 3 units without going on,
I'm not prepared to give you that detailed answer. I don't have the zoning code in front of me.
I'm trying to get to the but since the variance is approved, I'm not going to elaborate on that any further. Variance has been granted, so I'll stop there. Any other questions?
No. Actually, the only question, I don't know if this is the time to do it, is about the only right-hand turn in and out, and some of the concerns that we heard about people having to go around and U-turn and all that. Why? Because there's a driveway right next to it that is able to do both sides. Is it because of the ramp being right next to it.
This might be appropriate for Wayne Coe, our traffic engineer, to respond to this.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Wayne Coe, the principal traffic engineer from the Public Works Engineering Department. Yes, actually, it's because of the proximity to the freeway ramps. Left turn movement usually interfere with the through traffic on the ramp. The thing is, yes, there will be required trips. Residents will be required to make a U-turn at Altura. But if you look at the magnitude of this project, it's generating roughly about 24 trips in the afternoon, inbound plus outbound. And actually, the inbound trips about 14. So if you assume 4 trips coming from the foothill area, 10 trips coming from the south, 10 trips coming in and making that U-turn at Altura, it's going to be about 1 car every 6 minutes. The way to look at the magnitude of this, and it's really insignificant. The intersection of Altura is signalized. Making that U-turn is not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to make your comments and get some direction or approval, or however you?
Yeah, I mean, my comments, given the approved zoning and so forth, are mainly about kind of the articulation of the buildings. And one of the comments earlier brought up the notion of monotony. And I do think that there is there's room here for a little more variation. And I don't think it requires major surgery, but I think I applaud the use of color. I think there could be more of it. I applaud the change of plane, the 4 inches, but I think I'd like to see more of that. And the window, the fenestration, I think is very repetitive. And these kind of relentlessly same-sized vinyl sliders. I think I'd very much like to see, more window opening sizes, variation of window opening sizes, variation of the ways that windows open, some slide, some awning, some casement. I mean, just in this very modern vocabulary, I think there are ways to introduce variation that could be very effective without kind of tampering with the the need to get 30 units and the kind of the massing and the boxiness of it. I think that all can work. So those are kind of maybe considerations that we might want to consider. And one specific thing, as I pointed out earlier, I think the roof access ladders on the freeway side are a bit harsh. I think yes, it's the freeway side, and it's sort of the back, but actually, that as one of these rendering shows, that's probably as you cruise westbound on the 210, crossing over Pennsylvania, as one of these rendering shows. I mean that's a big view of the project. Actually, that's a major facade facing the freeway of the project as I see it, and as a gateway to this part of the neighborhood. I think that elevation shouldn't be seen as secondary. And so, okay, we'll go ahead. We'll put the exposed roof ladders with the cages on the back. I don't think that's acceptable. I think you need to treat that facade as important as any of the other facades. So, I'd very much like to see those go away and roof hatches introduced, which I think, might even be easier to do. Just put a ladder in the unit and pop a little hole in the roof. And so.
Just to get clarification for staff, when you said you were interested in more changes of plane, or were you talking about the change in plane, were you talking about more depth or more areas that display that aspect?
More depth.
More depth. So 5, 6, any guidance?
More the better.
More the better.
I think it helps, light and shadow on the facade. It just really helps to kind of create a texture and a vocabulary on the site that's unique and just cuts down a little bit on the boxiness.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Sarkeesian.
I agree with Dan on this. Maybe some of the windows being different, even though they're in the same location, but arranging them differently maybe so it doesn't become so repetitive. As far as the back of, that was my initial question. When I'm driving on that freeway, am I going to see the ladders, or is that below the freeway level? Is the top of the building?
You'll see the upper parts of those facades, yeah.
I think there's probably, I think the roof level is higher than the freeway by at least a few feet.
Yeah,
So at least you won't see the air conditioning, right?
You'll probably see it somewhere.
Yeah, the parapets hide the air conditioning from any view from the street.
Not the freeway.
I don't think our our code talks about
Right.
freeway
No, I'm
visibility.
just-
So.
And one of the our last driveway is 29 feet versus, let's say the second one shows 25. Is it because of the corner of unit number 27?
If I can respond to that. The westerly-most driveway is sized and positioned so that it also allows trash trucks and fire vehicles to be able to turn around in
Got
there.
it.
That's why it's a little wider.
Any other? Thank you. Mike, I concur with most of the comments the board members made. But this design, although it's modern and I appreciate it, it's a cookie cutter and it's boxy. I think there's room, like Mr. Herman said, and aside from the articulation, the more the better. But the units itself have to shovel around a little bit, in my opinion, to create better,
Like the Arden one.
Yes.
Can you put that back, the Arden?
I think there should be at least 2 feet of offset from each unit. Break the building. These are, and you're not stepping the building on the second floor. I understand you're taking the average and straight up, so you don't have to do the stepping on the building.
But from unit to unit,
You should push them
back,
at
yeah.
least 2 feet. Shove,
That's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, well,
I think that's beautiful, and I drive by that a lot.
And the other concern that I have, I don't mind having a 3-story, but the roof line is still consistent. This whole building is consistent. It should have a little more,
nice.
a little more play. And my concern is the common area. I don't see these common areas okay. You have benches for a few people to sit. It's not really a usable area for the tenants. I mean, you've paid attention so much to the private area, but there's not a large area for to congregate in this area. I don't know how you're going to achieve it without, but I do like the site planning, the concept of it being on grade. And the other thing that I would suggest is create some sort of a trash area, because I don't know how you're getting away with not having individual, because the code requires recycle room and a trash area designated.
They've identified space for all of the required trash receptacles and the ability to put them out and for the trash to be picked up. I think there's not enough space. We couldn't have a trash corral anywhere on the...
Well, no, I mean, there's a standard, trash size and recycle room size. At least, I know it's, you're going to have 30 or 60, you said, 60 trash bins here.
What about the green ones? Would that be 90?
Then 90, too.
There's no green.
We can look at that more carefully, but they say that they've studied that and have identified enough linear footage to put all the trash cans out.
Okay, this is a large project. I think it should have a trash room, a recycle room, but I'll leave it up to you how you figure out. If the zoning code allows you to have all these things, and you're saying these are required parking, so you're going to put them in the required parking area?
Or in front or alongside. It's like any suburban street.
The south side, they're going to put it against the
Against the building on the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's all. The south side of the driveway is all designated red curb, no parking.
I think, shaving off 2 or 3 units would solve a lot of problems.
I mean, if he can achieve the theory, I don't, because he's already compromising on the dwelling. I'm not going to elaborate. He's already, the northwestern plan is saying maximum 19 unit. And if he goes, he's already reduced it and he's already conforming to the density. If he could achieve, trash area and more articulation, the building, I think, will enhance the project further. I definitely agree with Mr. Herman that the articulation should be substantial to show the material change, and also the articulation between the units and the roof access. Yeah, I don't see those aesthetically pleasing from that side. If you could relocate them from any other side of the building that is not as visible, I can accept that. But the next, I think, the hatch is more, more aesthetically pleasing. And those are my concerns.
Could I clarify one of those? You were talking about the common areas. You said you like the site plan. Would you like more amenities within the common areas as they're proposed?
Yes, there's 30 families going to live here. I'm sure some of them will have few kids. There's no play area. There's no, project this size, especially when it's on grade, you need some area to So I appreciate the private area, but at least some common area has to be created that is usable by the tenants.
Okay, so we could talk about group communal areas,
Yes,
barbecues, play areas, and
Right.
work with the applicant on that.
The reason is that, isn't that going to come out when you do the zoning check on it? Isn't that part of our, guidelines, where you have to have 200 square feet per unit for X number of units, then 150 for the additional,
Yeah, and that calculation's been verified.
Where?
Are these driveways being counted as public space?
No, the driveways are not counted as public space.
Where is that, aside from what I see here? Aside from here? And these little areas?
Well, yes, these areas here and up here all count under our code as common open space.
As long as it meets the code requirement, that's fine, but at least the project this size should have some usable area. But, we'll see how the board feels about that. Anybody wants to make a motion based on our comments, or any additional comments that we need to?
Question, you said guest parking, you need 6?
8.
8. So how many in the front? 2, 4,
6.
6.
Oh, one question I had, I'm sorry.
Place to put
None of these units are handicap accessible, correct?
It looks like some of them say ADA on them, so I assume that those are
Oh, there's one there, okay.
two.
Yeah.
I see
Middle
two.
ones. 2.
So the handicap is going to come here, so that's the only unit I see, 1, 2.
1, 2, I see 2.
So how is the handicapped person is going to come from here to that unit?
From where?
From this unit to that unit?
Oh, from the parking?
Yeah.
The guest parking?
From the guest parking.
It'll be in their garage.
I'm talking about guest handicap. Again, those are not under my purview. Those things I'm just cautioning you, they may come up later on under different part of the review process. But, like I said, my comments are more articulation. The units itself has to be articulated, and Mr. Herman's comment that the material changes need to have, for 4 inches doesn't make it for this building. And goes with that. Anybody wants to make a motion, or do you have
Is there no way to put 2 more spots here?
4?
So I was saying if you could put 2 more spots here, this could be like a park area, small, where you have the additional parking up here.
The architect would probably have to speak to it, but it doesn't appear to me that there's physically room to put 2 more spaces out there.
You can't park in the 20-foot setback?
No.
From Pennsylvania?
No, you can't park. They would need another variance to do that.
Well, I'll let I just hate to see it come back if the zoning interpretation doesn't make it later on. But you're saying the numbers work, so be it. Numbers work, but I still feel that some gathering place, some area of usable common area
That's why I
should
was
be private.
suggesting
Yeah.
here.
Next to that
making-
is 5 guest parking place.
Yeah, instead of that, make that into a park and maybe get a variance
But
for
that's
2 more
not their
cars in the
property.
front.
That's,
Well, it's public. Can that be a park? I mean, it's a public. Probably easier to make it into a park than a parking space.
well, let's see where it goes with the motion, if you guys want to include that, and we'll take it from there.
Before we entertain a motion, we've had a lot of thoughts that I'm not sure if we've gained consensus on or not, so I just want to kind of run those down, and those could be conditioned as part of the motion for the ones that the board agrees on. In order of appearance, we had Commissioner Herman, or Board Member Herman, suggesting that more color be utilized across the site. Do you have any specific thoughts on that, or consensus? Or just more of the kind of patches of color that we see maybe in different locations or larger areas?
I think the comment is clear, right? More color.
More color?
Greater areas of color. I mean, like the color that's used is like a door here and a door there, and it's pretty minimal.
More color, okay.
And is there a consensus on that?
Yeah, we have
Yes.
consensus. You have like a little more mass on the color. And I don't know, you want the colors to be the same? Because they look like most of the colors are the same. Do you want it to be different?
Here are the
or-
colors.
There's a range.
Well, I think the highlight colors are good colors.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Okay.
think they're fine, but little 2 pieces of stucco here. I mean, you've got this big.
Yeah, it needs more.
It's pretty.
Okay, so we have consensus on that. the
All right.
color.
I believe we had consensus on increasing the change of plane so that we have a deeper recess wherever the building is furred out to create that effect.
Yes.
More the better. I
need
think
to
there was
give him a number?
consensus to,
You need to give him a number, or how deep you want it.
I think we'll work with the
We'll work it out,
architect to
okay.
see what's feasible and
Okay.
and it could be different in different locations perhaps.
Yeah.
We want to see more variety in the window pattern in terms of window opening size, their placement on the facades, and perhaps even how they operate, different operation types. I believe there was consensus on introducing roof hatches and eliminating the ladders at the rear, more or less, facades. There was mention made of reducing upper floors so that there could be more stepping on the facades, but I didn't hear full discussion of that.
I was talking about shoveling the units 2 feet, offsetting them from each other.
Oh, okay, so each unit,
Yeah,
which could have a serious impact on the driveways, which are pretty much laid out to the
Not
foot.
from what I see, is he's still got a few feet there. He's got the 25-feet driveway, then 3 feet in front of the garages. And there's small planters.
You want to make that a consideration in case there is an issue that's unsurmountable, or
He could reduce the unit size a little bit.
reduce? Okay, okay. So we'll change.
I mean, are these all considerations? Is that what we're saying?
No.
we have to
Generally,
give
these
the-
are all conditions unless you tell us, or there's not
Okay.
full agreement on the board.
But they're non-specific in the sense that ultimately you'll
Yeah, we will work with the applicant to
the
kind of
actual
invoke the
details.
consideration.
We're not saying it's coming back to verify, or are we?
You have that as an option of return for redesign?
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just wondering what it is we're saying at the moment.
As of now, what we're hearing is conditions that we'll work with the applicant
Okay.
to
All right.
make real.
Got it.
So we'll work with the applicant to change the placement of individual units so that there's some staggering of the units.
Right.
And they'll achieve that in whatever way is possible. That will, again, provide a little more detail there. I heard that there's interest in more variation in roof height. Would that and obviously the roof is level, but variation in parapet heights, is that the general
It would
concept?
help. It would help
Okay.
if they can
I think
achieve it.
all of these things are in the service of relief of the monotony.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's discussion about finding ways to make the common areas more usable, more communal through increased amenities, trying to identify possible park-like spaces, or introduce features into spaces that will draw people to the common space. I'm not sure where to go with the trash room. You know, they have worked out a plan that meets city standards for trash collection.
It works out with the city. That's, if they don't need a room, a recycle room, then that's fine.
Okay, we'll strike that.
I mean, comes back, comes back.
And try to find more open space. That's everything that I heard.
Okay. So, take a motion, please.
And the recommendations about
Oh, the additional recommendation on the...
cantilever canopies, I think.
Of course.
Without the support.
I support that
The lighting plan.
recommendation. Yeah.
On the lighting plan, yeah.
So I can make a motion to approve based on these conditions?
And the consideration, I'm sorry. The painting the utility cabinet.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt. May I have just a moment to confer with my staff?
Sure. Okay, we're back. So we have a motion? I guess you have to say.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve with the conditions and considerations as enumerated.
Okay.
I second it.
Roll call, please.
Board Member Sarkisian,
Yes.
Board Member Herman,
Yes.
Chairman Mardian.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so what's next?
The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for July the 25th. Mr. Herman was not present, and we essentially need a majority of the board members present at that meeting to approve the minutes. So perhaps we can go ahead and continue it to the next
Yes, that's fine.
hearing date for the design review board. With that said,
Take a motion to...
is there any other staff announcements? Mr. Platt?
Yes.
Any last minute staff announcements?
None, no.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
The meeting is
Carries.
adjourned.